Mars, the planet of action, action heroes, decisions, and ending things by cutting, snipping, and severing, the warrior. He's moving into the sign of Cancer for a 6-month stay. It's a crazy long duration that starts on September the 4th. It's really almost all Cancer through to April the 18th, except for a dip backwards into Leo between December 6th and January 6th. So this is an important story for the world. We haven't seen it quite this way, in which Mars moves into Cancer after retrograding from Leo, in making this stay almost 6 months long. Let me show you a picture of this sky before we talk about what it means for your sun, moon, rising sign, and of course for the world at large. Now you see what I'm talking about. Take a screenshot, hold on to it if you want. It's a handy little tool for you to use, and maybe my face is in the way, but do your best. What you see in yellow are the fact that the long stay of Mars is because in the sign of Cancer is because he started to move out of Cancer, got into Leo, and then backed up and went back. So these Leo retrograde ingresses in 1977 and 78 and 1945 and 46 are this rare. The rest of these ingresses are coming from the Cancer sign. In other words, Mars retrogrades within the sign of Cancer. We're going to break it down today for your sun, moon, and rising sign. So stay tuned. And of course, as always, look a little bit at the world events. So if you're new to my channel, welcome. My name is Lori Lothian, and I am using the Western Tropical Zodiac. This is not Vedic astrology. I'm also really into the fixed stars and minor asteroids, and I bring all of that into almost all of my content, as well as doing all signs format. So if you'd like to give me a try, hit the like button, subscribe. You'll find I'm highly engaged in my comments, and I'm really always in the live premiere. So when the video is airing, I'm in the chat room with you. That's the kind of high touch connection I like with my followers and audience, so that I can get to know your priorities. And by the way, the only thing I'm doing to promote this time frame is come join my Sky Reader class. 6 weeks of live learning starting the last weekend of September. And I've taught this class 4 times before. I love this class. It gets better every time I teach it. It's Q&A, a weekly coaching calls. It's a private Facebook group to share your homework. It's how to learn to read your natal sky, and then how to make predictions for yourself, teaching you to fish, right? And it's using some very cool, very simple ancient timing tools, not simply transit. So come join me. The wait list is below for early bird discount. The description of the course is also down below in the More button under the video title. And then you scroll down, you'll find everything about me, my website, my Patreon community. That's all you have to do to find out more about me. So let's get talking about this guy. The first thing I need to tell you is that it is going to be very interesting that we have this long stay of Mars in Cancer when we have the Ukraine-Russian war still unresolved and the Israel-Gaza war still unresolved, because Mars is a god of war. And when he's in Cancer, he's often doing things war-like. And I know that because I've done the research. As well, this time around, unlike 1945-46, and unlike 1977 and 1978, he's also this time around tussling with the nodes of fate. He is in a square to the nodes of fate, meaning that he is square the north node in Aries and the south node in Libra. When did he move through the sign of Cancer and square the nodes of fate? 1949, 1968, 1987, 2006, and here we are again, 1949, 1968, 1987, and 2006. And those would have been April of 49, July of 68, June of 1987, and April of 2006. We saw Mars crossing into a square position to the Aries North Node and the Libra South Node. So there are things that happened in those dates that we'll talk about. We all know what happened in 1968. We're doing the whole DNC, Democratic Convention, VP steps down, eclipses in Aries with Chiron, rinse, repeat, Groundhog Day story. I've talked about it in so many videos, which is why I predicted Biden would step down, which is why I knew there was going to be this kind of strange election cycle in which a VP suddenly takes the place of the president in the running for the presidency, and which there would be protests at the DNC, which there were, but they weren't as bad as 1968. Now, I'm going to show you a picture, and I want you to screenshot this. And why? Because you can keep it handy for your go-to tracking of the dates that are happening around the retrogradation and the passage of Mars through the sign of Cancer. Now, of course, all you Cancer, Sun, Moon, and Rising, Capricorn, Sun, Moon, and Rising, Libra, Sun, Moon, and Rising, Aries, Sun, Moon, and Rising are highly impacted. You're highly impacted for the obvious reason that this is going to be square to the signs that we just mentioned, or in opposition or in conjunction. So you guys are in the thick of it. You are the cardinal signs, and Cancer is a cardinal sign to do with the spinning wheel of one's destiny as action and change happens in the cardinality of our universe. You're going to see here that Mars goes direct. You go ahead and get a screenshot. I'll take my time talking. Mars goes direct. Well, he's moving direct into the sign of Cancer on September the 4th. Then he continues to move forward and crosses the Leo boundary on November the 4th. So we see 2 full months, basically, of Mars in the sign of Cancer. Mars will retrograde from 6 degrees of Leo on December the 6th and start to move backward and cross back in to the Cancer boundary line at 29 Cancer on January the 6th. Therefore, from January the 6th through to April the 18th, he is Mars moving through the sign of Cancer. He's retrograde in Cancer, however, from January 6th to February 23rd. So not only will we have him in his detriment, in his sign of his fall, we'll also have him retrograding during that time period. So we'll have to see what that looks like when Mars goes retrograde. In some people's philosophy, it's a terrible time for matters of war and conflict. And for others, he's kind of low-key, down low, not doing too much. It's going to be a fascinating circumstance to watch this. So again, the retrograde period will be January 6th to February 23rd in the sign of Cancer. He goes direct at 17 degrees of Cancer and then kicks his ass out of Cancer by April the 18th. So all of you Cancer, Sun, Moon, and Rising people, buckle up. Unless you were alive in 77, 78, or 1945, 46, this is a big deal for you. It's also, as I said, extremely important to the Libra people, the Capricorn people, the Cancer people, and the Aries folk. All of us are getting a huge amount of angularity to our sun, our moon, or rising sign. And therefore, this is going to critically turn our lives around, inside down, upside down, over and out. And that's why it's going to be very important to our video when I get to your sign, because this is a rare and this is a destined energetic. Because not only do we have these long retrogrades, but unlike in 1945, 46, and unlike in 1977, 78, Mars is squaring a north node in Aries and a south node in Libra. That's a flavor add, value add on this story. So by now, I suppose many of you had a chance to maybe take a screenshot for yourself. So First off, Mars in Cancer can be extremely patriotic, extremely defensive for the home and homeland, because Cancer can represent home and homeland, nest, home, safety, family, the desire to protect those close to us. And it's emotional. Right? Mars is like, I've got to kill people today, right? The classic assassin. He can't be too emotional. So when Mars is in his fall in the sign of the mother, the sign ruled by the moon, he can be very emotionally overwrought. Let's say he's not used to using emotions. But on the positive side, the fierce mother bear who protects her cubs. On the negative side, someone going berserker with their sword, right? Or their weapon. So it's not good if Mars isn't calibrated for the sign of his exaltation, which is Capricorn, the opposite sign, where he can go the distance, where he's more level-headed, where he's more Saturnian, more constrained, more realistic, more climbing the mountain step by step. Instead, like when I think of like crazy slasher stories, sometimes I think that's got to be Mars in his fall, right? Somebody's really losing their mind. They're going berserker with their sword. Something could be difficult there. When Mars goes through anything, he cuts, divides, and separates. His job is to cut, to divide, to separate. Think of scissors, right? Think of scalpels. So when he's in Cancer, he's going to cut home and homeland. So often when people are born with Mars in their 4th house, they travel a lot from home. Sure, they had some fighting in their childhood, yeah, but also they often become expats and they cut away from their homeland. And it happens a lot. Julian Assange has Mars in the house of his homeland, and because of his situation, he ended up cut away, exiled, expated from his homeland for many, many years, which his homeland is Australia. Now, if Mars is cutting through a sign that represents home and homeland and homes, right, we might expect to see new boundaries drawn in the world. And indeed, we did see new boundaries drawn, because 1945, 1946 was the post-World War II redrawing of boundaries. USSR, Germany, Japan, the global boundaries began to significantly change in the fall of 45 into the spring of 46 as the post-World War II environment emerged, and people began to look at how to create new countries, new boundaries in the world. And, you know, going back to that time frame, because I'm going to also talk about that 77, 78, I have a few notes about some of the things that happened in the window of time that we're talking about. So the United States granted the Philippines back in the 45, 46. And just so you know, I mean, not that you care, but it really, I mean, you don't need to know the exact time frame, because we're not really that, it's not that important, but it's very much eerily like this time, the 45, 46 story. I'm looking for the right piece of paper. Give me a minute. But it's kind of like exactly like what we're doing now. It was like September of 1945 that Mars entered into the sign of Cancer, right? This is September 4th. That was September 7th. So in 1945, September, Mars enters Cancer, doesn't leave Cancer to April of 2022 because of retrogrades from Leo. So it's very much the same vibe, all right? And Nuremberg, war criminals. We had that whole beginning in the fall of 45 through to the fall of 46 was the beginning of the Nuremberg trials, the war criminal trials post-World War II. If Mars did Nuremberg war crime trials, I would expect criminal trials to do with war to come back again in spades sometime between this September and all the way through perhaps to next fall, but certainly this September through to April 18th, we may see evidence for a trajectory for official criminal war crime trying people for war crimes. You know, you can see why, right? And the United States granted the Philippines independence. So the granting of independence to an occupied territory, in quotes, right, a satellite nation or whatever, happened. It was the United States giving it to the Philippines. Let's see if there's any granting of independent territory to any country or occupied country in the world. Is Mars cutting boundaries in the sign of Cancer? Yes. Is he snipping new boundaries? But he's fighting advocate, champion, warrior, hero for home and homeland and rights to home and homeland. So those are some themes back then. There are probably so many more. But if we go to 1977, 1978, fall of 1977 to 1978, it's the same story. September of 77, we got to like the April of 19... It's the same vibe, guys. Just trust me on that. You know, Mars went into Cancer August 31st of 1977, almost September, and left Cancer April 10th of 1978. And again, retrograded from Leo in roughly a similar timeline. So I don't need to go over it all again, just to say here we are again, where what happened in 1977 and 1978 around those timeframes. Well, first of all, you know, Mars can go emotional and massacres can happen. And there were probably massacres in 45, 46 as well. But we did have a Golden Dragon massacre in San Francisco in September of 1977, for example. And we also saw the Egypt breaking its diplomatic ties, Mars breaking, cutting, severing, things to do with ties with people with, you know, regional energy. So Egypt broke up with Syria, Iraq, and Yemen, and a bunch of others broke diplomatic ties back in that window of time. We may see the breakage of diplomatic ties as a result of Mars in Cancer in some part of the world. So that's, oh my God. Anwar Sadat, the Prime Minister of Israel, or President, anyway, of Israel, went to visit the the Arab world, which is a first. So it's a kind of a breaking of tradition regarding home and homeland and neighbors. We also had, forget this one, the last person ever to be executed by a guillotine, getting their head chopped off. Mars is the assassin, the executioner, the warrior in France, happened in September of 77. That was the last guillotine slicing off of someone's head. So there's a cool one. And also we have all kinds of stuff. Sam Berkowitz, the mass murderer, was arrested around the ingress of Mars into the sign of Cancer during the beginning of a 6-month stay. But where I want to go most directly here, I find, is to the Gaza war. Because, yes, we can say that 1945, 46 was a lot to do with Russia, because it was the beginning of Russia began to say Poland and Hungary, these are our satellite countries. Russia, Cold War began. Russia began to break up its own territory into the Soviet Union. So things from 45, 46 are very much connected to Russia narratives. Probably 77 and 78 are as well. But I can't have time to research everything. If you have time to research, follow 77 for me in the comments into 1978 through to April, what was going on in the USSR. That can be very important. I think there was, a nuclear arms proliferation treaty was signed. That was a great one. Thank you for my partner for finding that one for me. So the non-nuclear proliferation treaty was signed in September of 1977. This treaty was signed by 22 countries, including the Soviet Union. So that's how we see the Soviet Union involved in this kind of nuclear disarmament. Why would that happen with Mars in Cancer? Because Mars wants to protect home and homeland. He is not always about berserkers, right? So cutting and dividing boundaries, but protecting the land and the home. And of course, nothing worse than weapons of mass destruction to threaten the home and homeland. So that's an example of some good things that Mars can do in the sign of his fall, in the sign of the mother, the sign of the moon. Now, finally, I would note this. We have a Gaza story here. We don't have Gaza in per se, but we have an Israel story back in 77, 78. And the story we have is in March of 1978, there was the Coastal Road Massacre, in which there was a Tel Aviv massacre, a bus extended out. It was a massacre in Israel, okay, by Israel's, neighbors or enemies or whatever. So that happened in 1978, but what it did is it led to this war in Lebanon. And that is an important part of the story of Israel getting involved in war outside the boundaries of its official country into the boundaries of another country. Gaza, West Bank, these are occupied territories. In fact, as I record today, I just heard that they're now Operation Summer Camp, how to be frivolous about people dying in the West Bank, as they're now blocking access to hospitals and doing an invasion of the West Bank, not even involved with Hamas. So, go figure. When, the United States is snoozing on the button of like, hey, pull back, because Biden's obviously not really on the job. I don't know who's running the show. Israel will do what it wants. So, but that aside, in 1978, South Lebanon conflict, that was an important part of the story of Israel going to war with Lebanon. And of course, Hezbollah is currently lobbing missiles into Israel. Okay, so into Tel Aviv, into Israel. And it was the Tel Aviv Coastal Road Massacre that started the war with Lebanon back in 1978. So March of 78, and we still had Mars after his long stay in Cancer there until April of 78. So I expect the Israel-Lebanon border problems to continue to increase, not decrease, if I use the last time this happened as an example. All right. So March 14, 78, Israel launched Operation Litani after the Coastal Road Massacre, stated its goals were to push Palestinian militant groups, especially the PLO, away from the border with Israel and to bolster Israel's ally at the time, the South Lebanon Army, because of the attacks against Lebanese Christians and Jews and blah, blah, blah. So that whole thing started, and it ended up with United Nations SC Resolution 425 in response to this whole thing. They called for the withdrawal of Israeli forces from Lebanon in March of 1978. So we're going to see similar narratives playing out. The thing is, unlike the Gaza story, where thousands and thousands of civilians were killed. The main complication was hundreds to 250,000 people were displaced, all right, in Lebanon because of the fighting. And the Carter administration was involved. And there's a little bit here to talk about, and that's this. I think I'm going to bring this up, okay? U.S. President Jimmy Carter, according to U.S. President Jimmy Carter, the use of the cluster bombs violated the legal agreement between Israel and the United States because these weapons had been provided for the defensive purposes against an attack on Israel. Israel had transferred American weapons to Saad Haddad's Lebanese militia, a violation of American law. So there was a violation of like the Leahy thing, you know, right now in the United States is potentially violating its own laws by the way it's supplying weapons of mass destruction, weapons of violence in ways that are not supposed to be used, defensive versus offensive. So we had a similar Carter administration thing going on, saying there was a violation of the use of the rules of the United States gives you cluster bombs, but you can only use them this way. So the Carter administration prepared to notify Congress that American weapons were being used illegally, which would have resulted in military aid to Israel being cut off. The American consul in Jerusalem informed the Israeli government of their plans. And according to Carter, Prime Minister Begin said that the operation was over. So it's one of those pivotal moments where the United States was getting ready to not supply weapons to Israel because of a violation of the rules in which those weapons were to be used. Well, a lot of people think there already is a violation of the way the weapons are being used in the Gaza conflict that are being supplied by the United States of America, and it's in violation of the Leahy law. So we'll see maybe a follow through on that, as well as Mars moves through Cancer, in which that violation is being brought to the public's attention or being brought to Congress or being brought into action, okay? Instead of just ignoring it. So those are some overlaps. Finally, before we get to your all sign, couple of thoughts. We're in an election year, okay? 1977-78 was not an election year. So we can't compare that to an election year, but we can make this comparison. 1968 was indeed a time in which the Democratic National Convention, 68, 69, and protests and uprising and civil rights things were all happening. We had a lot of unrest. And we're seeing that 1968 was a similar time frame in which we saw, 68 and 69, this energy of North Node eclipses playing through the sky. And in this regard, I think we're in a very similar storyline. I feel like what we're experiencing at this juncture is a strong movement toward a repeat of some of the themes of 1968, because with Mars squaring the nodes of fate in 68 and squaring the nodes of fate now, we can look to certain things like the word, I don't like saying this word, ASS, well, assassination. Now, we already saw an attempt on Trump, but we saw Martin Luther King, we saw Robert Kennedy Sr. being assassinated in 68. And there were more assassinations in that year. I don't have them all handy, because Mars is like Sam Berkowitz, right? He's like an assassin or a murderer, and then he gets in his detriment, in his fall. So we still have this story of Mars and detriment moving through the sign of Cancer, where I'm concerned we'll see some sort of continuation of themes of violence against political leaders anywhere in the world. It does not have to only be in the United States of America. And let's say one more thing before we head into the all signs delineation. And I want you to be aware of this, and also maybe mention the election. I'll show you the chart as well. But I was going to say that Mars was squaring the nodes of fate on the following dates, right? I told you April of 1949, we had the Nakba and we had the displacement of Palestinians and stuff like that in 1949 and 1948 and 49. But 1968, it was on July the 13th. And because that was a direct square, and we're moving this September 16th into a direct square of Mars on the nodes of fate, what would have happened around July 13th, 1968, that might give us a clue about this time around? Because 1968 is the closest rendition because of the square to the nodes of fate with eclipses and Chiron together. So that's the closest look-alike to this time frame. So I didn't know this, but there was another nuclear treaty signed, just like in 1977, when Mars was staying in the sign of Cancer for forever. During his shorter stay in the sign of Cancer in 1968, while he squared the nodes of fate, we also saw yet another, this is July of 68, another treaty signed. This does bode well for the, de-armament of nuclear weapons or something good happening. USSR, Britain, and 58 nations signed a nuclear non-proliferation treaty, including USSR, in July 1st of 1968. That counts because it was July 13th that Mars made the perfect connection to the nodes of fate, but he was definitely building that up. So we see that. We want to see good shit like that. I like it. Mars is in a sign of water, which could mean flooding, and there was some major flooding, Mars being a malefic planet of disasters. There was some major flooding at the time. It was, I think, the Ohio River, if I'm correct. It was July the 9th. There was 15 inches of rainfall in Columbus and Mississippi in 24 hours. So there was massive flooding. So we saw some bad weather. So I guess we could have flooding or bad weather. Now I'm going to include bad weather to be tsunamis and hurricanes. I covered this in my September overview video. So we can say also extreme weather, extreme water weather with Mars in his fall in Cancer. And we saw that in 1968. As he squared the nodes of fate, we may see it in the September as he squares on September 16th, take a week or two before and after some extreme hurricane or tsunami or water weather things in the world and in the United States as well, of course. The U.S. Major League Baseball, because Mars rules sports, competitive sports, announced it's going to split into two divisions for 1969. So a splitting in two, Mars cuts, ends, and severs of a major league into two divisions. That's news. That's perfect. Holy man. Can't make that stuff up. There was a bloodless coup in Iran. So there was a coup is very Mars, And what else? Mars rules like planes, trains, automobiles, and submarines. And the Beatles animated film The Yellow Submarine premiered in London while Mars was in July of 1968, while Mars was in Cancer, squaring the nodes of fate in the way he was squaring. I'm just going to make sure I don't miss anything. The PLO first hijacking of a plane, of an ALL plane. I don't know. So it was a hijacking. That's Mars. Mars is hijacking. Mars is also terrorist events. Okay. So we didn't have terrorist events like on the scale that we do now back then. Riots are Mars. There was a race riot in Gary, Indiana. So riots, hijackings, terrorist events, water flooding events, squaring the nodes of fate. Not just in September, but he is squaring the nodes of fate most exactly in September. But just remember that he's going to be all like in the sign of Cancer, squaring whole sign the nodes of fate through till next April. So these are longer stories than just the month of September, as they were in the month of July back in the day. Okay, so I found a few things for you that are very Mars. A volcano erupted in Costa Rica, killing 87 people and burying 3 small villages. So volcanoes, extreme water weather, hijacking, terrorist events, massacres, assassinations are Martian things. In his fall in Cancer, they are definitely not going to look also happy and good on us. And we can go back to 1987, where he squared the nodes of fate in June and then July of 2006, and look for comparable stories. I will not have time to do that right now, but you'll see similar themes coming through. But remember, in July of 68, June of 87, April of 2006, those were his 6-week transits through the sign of Cancer, squaring the nodes of fate. And this time we have them square the nodes of fate in a whole sign square for months, okay, for months. How long? Until January, because in January, the nodes move around January 11th, if memory serves me, out of Libra and out of Aries and move into the Virgo Pisces axis. So it means that he's in a whole sign square to the nodes of fate through September 4th to January. And so there's a sense then that this is the most intense time for some of the darker themes of Mars. It could play out in our collective with a focus on the exact square around September 16th, give or take a week before and after. Maybe we're going to see some intense world events connected to some of the more difficult themes that I just outlined for you. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to do all signs. I want you to listen for your sun, for your career and purpose, your moon for your home, safety, and all of that. Let me show you the sky and your rising sign for everything about you. I'm going to pop the sky up so you can see what it looks like, and we're going to go through your sign. All right, I want to give you a little glance at the sky so you see what's going on, and we're going to cover how you can use this Mars for yourself. You are not going to be in, hopefully, the land of assassins and the darker side of this narrative. Okay. I need to just put my phone into a charger. Give me a second. I'll be right back. Oh, right. And let's get rolling and talk about Mars moving through the sign of Cancer for a long, long time. So there's Mars sitting here on August the 28th, and I'm moving him forward, and we're going to watch him move at the bottom of the sky into the sign of Cancer. And here we go on the 4th, he's there. And you might notice that as Mars is moving through the sign of Cancer down here, I just want to give you a picture first, and then we'll do your sign. As we see him right down here in the sign of Cancer, you'll notice that the nodes of fate are at 6 degrees here and 6 degrees here. That's Aries, and there will be this square that forms around the 16th of September. That is a critically difficult energy. It can show up a week before, week after. I already anticipate some significant problems anytime from the 25th of September onward. It could be earlier than I think, and the problems could be multitudinous in the world, in the collective sphere. You know, this is the axis for Israel, right? This is Israel's ascendant, and that's the house of its enemies. And Mars will be at that exact square point of Israel's enemies and Israel itself. And where that falls in the nation of Israel's chart, as I mentioned in another video, is in the 10th house, where Mars is traveling, has to do with leaders and the people in charge of the country. And Mars cuts, ends, and severs. This puts Netanyahu in harm's way, physically, perhaps, from something like what happened to Donald Trump, for example. And technically, the harm's way may be the most intense, perhaps, maybe, on the 16th, but maybe not, because the nation of Israel has its ascendant degree, for example, at 21 degrees or so of Libra. It could be as Mars moves closer to the 21st degree, and that could be more about when Israel is in more of a difficult circumstance regarding its leader and leadership. So if we clear the drawing for a minute and I just move Mars forward, we'll get to that point in time. The other point I want to make about Mars is the retrogrades, right? So he's going to go back over old ground on his retrogradation, December the 6th to February 24th. And that means that things that we thought were going forward in some area of our life, or like, in any area, like for the nation of Israel, its leadership, could backtrack, right? Could have to be redone, could have to go through a lot of change and reassembly of some sort. Kamala Harris has her sun in the sign of Libra. And so this means that Mars will square her sun. Now, Mars squaring her sun with Jupiter refraining from her ascendant, that's complications in her campaign of some kind. The kind of complication that may happen from this Mars story, I'm not sure about yet, but her sun will have more than one square from Mars during the transit of Mars from September 4th to April the 18th through the sign of Cancer. And that is indicating some troubles to her career and reputation matters, perhaps. Okay, so she is a Gemini rising. And so that means that her sun is in a positive flow to her rising sign. Her sun is in her fifth house. But the fifth house can be more like one's celebrity status, one's the way the media entertainment industry loves you or does not love you. And it's just an interesting thing. It's just her sun. Forget about what the fifth house of her chart means. Her sun is under duress. So it will be an interesting time for her. In the United States of America, Mars represents the United States of America, because the United States of America is a Sag rising, that Mars is traveling through Cancer. It's the eighth house, and in a mundane chart, the eighth house means mass death. Okay, mass death. So it can indicate a time in which there will be some kind of problem. Mars rules wars, plagues, and terrorist activities that involve a lot of people maybe being in harm's way, mass death of the people. It's also a house connected to banking and finances across from Capricorn's second house in the United States chart, and could indicate some time of economic hardship. When Mars squared the nodes of fate in 1987, we had the Black Monday crash, just so you know. If you might remember, Mars was squaring the nodes of fate in 2006 and a little bit in 2007, but certainly in April of 2006, especially. And it was April 2006. So the subprime loan scandal that took America down didn't happen until 2007-8, fall of 7, but that could have been a precursor energy. I'm not sure. What else can I say about the picture before we move into all signs? Mars is going to flow to Vladimir Putin's ascendant in Scorpio and to his Venus in Scorpio, making for a possibility that this is going to give him strength, even though Mars is in his fall, that there is flow from the ninth house of Putin's chart, which can be courts, justice systems, or things to do with the international world, towards his ascendant. He's already up with the BRICS nations. He's pals with China. And so this can be a strength of his international support as this window of time looks good on him, September 4th to April 18th, not particularly hard. Anything else I'd say about it? Let's see. Probably that's all we have for now on the general themes. As Mars is moving through this part of the sky, he's going to connect here. Just keep your eye on the ball. I'm going to move him forward. We're trying to get him closer to a problem sky that we have around here, the 25th of the month. This is Pan for pandemic. You can use it for pandemonium, panic, and pandemic. Take your pick. And asteroid chaos is with him. I don't have it drawn in, but trust me, the moon is people, the people panicking, chaos. Chaos is here, right here. I'll just draw it in like chaos was still here. The asteroid chaos, it looked like a little snowflake. We have chaos, panic, pandemonium, panic, pandemic, I don't know, Mars, cut and sever bombs, war, terrorism, bad weather, assassinations, and plagues. Mars is a god of plagues. And the moon. Okay, this is an early sky the last week of September. It also happens to be in a context of connection to or squaring a broad square to the nodes of fate where the eclipses have been happening. So we have to keep this in mind. We just have to remember that this is a very intense energy, that this isn't a whole sign square to the nodes of fate. And at the same time, we see Apophis, the asteroid for catastrophic destruction of the earth, and the swallower of the sun god Ra. Okay, and it would have been conjoined the sun a few days earlier, sitting with Apollo, also a sun god, but also connected to plagues, across from Gonggong, the sea serpent who causes hardship with water and catastrophes as well. So we have a lot of intense sky going on here, I have to say that. And knowing that the sun was back here only a few days earlier, let's go back to closer to, let's move it back, stop the share maybe, I'll just clear the annotations, clear my drawings, let's move the sun back. Okay, let's do it together. We'll move the sun backwards in time, 1, 2, 3. I want to get the sun here. Okay, so around the 16th, we also see when Mars is squaring the nodes of fate, we see the sun for leader, we see the sun god Apollo, we see Apophis for catastrophic stuff and destruction, Mercury news stories, right? Opposite Moon, Neptune, Saturn, water, hardship, and Gonggong, the sea serpent. So I'm going to say it's probably what we're seeing here is some massive climate event, natural disaster in the world somewhere, and it can influence world leaders as well. And in the United States Sibley chart, this part of the sky is the top of the sky. It happens to be the United States leadership, the party in power, which is the Republican Party. I mean, the Democratic Party. And Saturn here is giving hardship to the Republicans as well. It's a hot mess. It's a hot mess. At least Kamala has Venus sidling up to her sun. So Kamala doesn't seem to be doing too bad around the 16th, 17th, but there's just a kind of Republican Democrat crisis going on across this axis here. Finally, and then I'll do your sign, I promise. The last thing I want to show you. I didn't mean to stop the share. I really did not. The last thing in the world event astrology before we do all signs and settle in, I'm going to give you a lot of time on your sign because there's a lot to talk about. And the last thing I want to point out is that eventually, of course, Mars is going to come closer to 21 degrees and be in a whole sign square to the nation of Israel's ascendant, which isn't good for the nation of Israel. I believe my memory serves me, 21 degrees of Libra or so. Could be 20, 23, but it's there. Okay, it's in the zone. So October the 14th feels really tough for Israel. Let's just say October 10th through the 20th, Israel's in the crosshairs of a square from Mars because of the retrogradation of Mars through the sign of Leo and back to 17 degrees. 17 degrees. This will happen more than once. It's probably useful for us to just go ahead, if we have the patience, and go back and forth and find out when we get Mars back here. Okay, there we go. So another pass of the ascendant around the ascendant of Israel, kind of like, late January, and there will be a third late January, and then late January. So we have the middle of October, late January, Israel, Mars, the ascendant of Israel. And again, next March, late March of next year. So late January, late March, and mid-October, Israel's getting slammed by its identity as a nation by Mars. So remember some of the themes I brought up? War crimes, tribunals, Nuremberg, divisions, new land boundaries being cut. These stories are here. So there's a lot going on in Israel's chart and in the chart of Netanyahu. That would be a whole video on its own, but I'm tired of talking about it. I get too many people telling me things about me that aren't true. I just don't like, I don't like GENOCIDE. All right. I just don't like it. Call me crazy. And so that's what I'm standing for. All right, that's what I'm standing for, is anti-GENOCIDE, or ethnic cleansing, if you would like. All right, so we're done. It is August the 28th, and I'm recording for my Patreon community to get this early access ad-free. If you want early access ad-free content where you don't have to watch ads, you get this before the public, then you might want to check out my community for $5. And I'm also thinking of starting a join button here on my channel. They're trying to get me to do that from YouTube land. And if I do it, I'll find a perk that doesn't replicate perks I have on my Patreon, because I love the intimacy of my Patreon community. All right, so that is that. We're going to do your sign, get ready, get set, and get all settled in for a deep dive into your sign. Get a glass of wine, a piece of paper, get a tea, or whatever makes you happy, because this is not a short video. Let's do the all signs videos. And I'm going to just pause, break, and restart my recording. You won't even know I'm gone. Let's dive into your sign for this transit of Mars we have not seen for ages. I gave you the lowdown before in the 1945-46 time period, and also in the 70s. So this is rare. That's what matters. We're going to talk about how this is going to look for you over the course of the next, unfortunately, 6 months. Yeah, all the way from September 4th to April the 18th, minus a dip out of the sign of Aries between November the 4th and January the 6th. Alrighty. So we're going to give you the broad brushstroke of this, because it's really hard to delineate every little thing that Mars is going to do during his transit through this sign. And I will remind you, because I did share this with you guys yesterday, maybe it's worth reiterating it just for your if you missed the beginning, say you're like one of those people who skipped everything because you're not interested in the general stuff, let me share with you again the screen thing you can screenshot that will help you, keep track of what's going on in the sky, right? It's my little screenshot, that thingy I made for you guys. And where did it go? Of course, now I can't find it. Ah, there it is. So I'm going to share it with you. And if you want to grab this, if you didn't grab it in the beginning, and you're one of those, as I said, skip ahead to the all signs, you've got this little feature available for you. And it will help you remember what's going on, right? So bottom line, reminding you that basically for each single sign, sun, moon, and rising, take your rising sign is probably more accurate, sun next, and then moon, but try all three. You're going to find that the transit of Mars reminds you of, most of people weren't here in 1945, right? Or so, but many of us were here in 77, 78. And some of you may have memories of what was going on in that time of your life that can help you sort of suss out the vibe, because it was the same, as I said in the intro, back in the late summer of 77 to the late spring of 78, 1978. And so here we have, just to double check the dates. Yeah, those are the dates. Sorry, I'm recording on a separate day, as you might imagine. I just want to make sure that I gave you the right dates. Yeah, so it was starting in September of 77 to March of 78. Just double checking those dates. August 15th of 1977, I think. So 1945, 46, and oh Lord, well, whatever I said in the beginning. Oh my God. So grab that, do the screenshot, you know the drill. I'm just trying to find my notes on the dates in the 1970s exactly, but of course now I can't find it. So that's just what happens when you are busy, busy, busy in your world of astrology. It would have been August 31st of 1977. So go back to if you're old like me, I was born in the 60s, you can go back to the August 31st of 1977 period of time to April the 10th, 1978. So August of 77 to April of 78, for those who have memory of that time. Otherwise, just know that basically having Mars in Cancer from September 4th to April 18th, minus his dip into Leo, December 6th through to February 23rd. Okay, so December 6th to February 23rd, we don't have that story. Otherwise, yes, we do have that story. So February 23rd to April 18th, he's back in Cancer. Now let's get going and do all signs. And shall we start? I think this will be about another 45 minutes long if you're trying to time yourself. That's my guess. Timestamps will be in the description box. Timestamps will be pinned to the comments as well. And the chapters, click the title of this video and you can jump to your sign. So we'll start with Aries, and I am one of you. Aries sun and moon, actually, and Mercury. Yeah, feisty, I am feisty. And I'm just for fun drawing a card for each sign. And the message for Mars moving through your fourth house, Aries, is the 5 of Wands, which is the competitive spirit. So, it's when you need to go to bat at a deep spiritual level for something that matters to you, fire up the soul, wands, the spiritual energy, the creative energy, and go into competitive mode or into sort of that spirit of I can do it, I can win. So think about that just as a backdrop. And now we're talking about Mars in your fourth house. Look, it's your home, right? And it's your nest and it's where you live. And there's no way that you're going to have Mars traveling through this part of your chart for that long and not move somewhere. So not only are we talking about September 4th to November 4th, of course, but we're also talking about the possibility of Mars instigating a change in your home environment, especially in the second wave of January the 6th to February to March. Oh, yeah, he's direct. So he's, oh my God, January the 6th to April the 18th. January 6th to April the 18th as well. We have him in Cancer, retrograde, and then stationing direct. Got it? I've got my notes here. This girl's going to stick them on a board thingy so I can remember what the heck I'm talking about. This is totally like what happens when you've got way too much data in your life. I apologize. Okay, data everywhere. Let's get rolling. Now, Ah, yes, Lori's having a moment. Can you tell? Good enough, right? I'm just trying to keep my board on the ground there. Okay. Huh. All right. So bottom line, your home, you're going to move or you're going to change your home or travel away from home, go on a journey or adventure far from home, do construction in the home, hopefully not have battles and fighting in the home, because don't forget all the fives can involve chaos or fighting. It's a 5 of wands. So you could be having feisty conversations in the home, but you could also be having big disagreements, arguments, and conflict in your home and private life. So be aware of the tendency for Mars to fight at home when you are in this kind of modality. Now, you could also be in a position here for some extended travel overseas. I've seen that with Mars in the 4th house. It's literally like the expat exile from one's home signature. But of course, you're not born with it, like Julian Assange. You just may travel far away extensively from your homeland, Cancer, during this time. And when Mars is moving through this part of the chart, he is also squaring the nodes of fate. Now, this is making this exceptionally rare, which I mentioned in the intro. We haven't seen this exceptionally rare Mars through Cancer and spending so much time in Cancer in any time I could research. So, yeah. However, we did have Mars in Cancer squaring the nodes of fate from your 4th house for 6 weeks in September of 87 to August of 89. What were you doing back then? September 87. Oh my God, that's not the right chart. That's the eclipse cycle. We did have, let me see what I'm looking at. Just give me a sec. I'm going to go back and get those dates for you that are just Mars squaring the nodes of fate. And then we'll continue. Yeah, don't even ask, guys. I apologize, Aries. I seem like I'm scattered today. What I was going to say is that if you look at Mars moving through your 4th house and around September 16th, for example, he squares the nodes of fate. And it's his one pass because his retrograde won't take him back that far towards the nodes of fate. But it could indicate between now and January, there's elements of your life that could remind you of things that were going on in June of 1987 or April of 2006. It may have comparables for you. So you might want to try, I don't know who can remember the details, but if you can remember like April of 2006 and June of 1987, and maybe around that time, what kinds of life events were unfolding, then you might find yourself being able to make some comparisons. When Mars is squaring the nodes of fate in the 7th house, 1st house axis like this, it can be ends of relationships, breakups of a relationship. And for me, for example, I did break up with somebody in the spring of 2006. A long-term relationship with a man I dated for 2 years was coming to an end. So Mars is cutting, ending, and severing. He's aiming at your, oops. he's aiming here, right? He's going this way, aiming at the south node, let go, release, surrender, a significant long-term love relationship, client, or business partnership. As he squares the nodes of fate, that might be obviously something that needs to happen between his ingress on September the 4th through to January, where we still have the nodes really locked and loaded in Libra and the sign of Aries. So keep that in mind. The other thing Mars could do down here, depending on your chart, if you have your midheaven floating in the 10th house and your IC floating in the 4th house in whole sign house system astrology, this could be a change of your career path, a change of job, a change of work, a significant deviation that Mars is trying to create for you from September 4th really through to April the 18th. So it may not just be about home, because if he's cutting through the roots of the career or the purpose, then he's cutting like the roots of a tree. And so your change of career, change of purpose, change of what you wish to do in the branches of your midheaven at the top of the sky may be a very strong indication of what he's up to here. But for the most part, I would expect many Aries folk to have significant changes in their home as a result of this transit. Now, let me be really clear. This is not, even though this is acute between now and April, in general, Mars coming through this part of your chart happens, every 2 years, he goes through this part of your chart. So it could indicate in the next 2 years from this transit, you will have a significant change of home or a significant change of homeland. or if your midheaven IC axis is here, a significant change of career. The same thing applies to whether a relationship may or may not end. In June of 1987, what did I do? I changed my place of residence. So over the 2 years that followed that particular transit, because I got pregnant and needed a bigger place to live in New York City. So you may see in the next couple of years a change of home, a change of homeland, a change of career, and in your case, angularity, a change of significant long-term love relationships. When we see the exact squaring of the nodes of fate on September 16th, that could be a really difficult time for you in a significant long-term relationship. It doesn't mean it has to end. It just could be difficult. Similar intensity with a business partner if you have a business partner. And finally, Mars moving through your fourth house in this way, squaring the nodes of fate, may indicate that you are personally making some significant changes through decisions and actions. And that's because Mars rules the Aries part of the sky, which represents you. An Aries sun, in the next, between September 4th and April 18th, you're going to start making some significant changes by deciding and taking action in your life. You are the action taker decider. Mars is helping you make them at a foundational level, where you live, who you live with, what you do in your career, and all of that. So you have a lot of strength here, as Mars is your Lord, and he is the one giving you the turbocharged, decisive action taking and willpower energy. Finally, Mars down here is in his fall. Where he really wants to be is in your 10th house. He wants to be exalted in the 10th house, but he's busy doing domestic chores, indicating things to do with your family of origin, your home, your nest, or your children, maybe competing for your attention in your career, especially because Mars does ingress into Leo from December the 6th until January the 6th. Look for your children, your romantic love partner, or other fifth house people to be dragging your attention away from your career success activities. You're going to go into a dip. Maybe your partner in love and romance is having a hard time. Maybe your child is having a hard time. So there's this quality of competition. Mars would love to get off of his fall and into his exaltation, but he's in the domestic home life story. I could make a story even of Mars ingressing into the house of children December the 6th to January the 6th and dragging a child back home to live with you. Anytime, like if you have adult children, especially who can't find enough money for rent or something, January 6th to April 18th could involve taking a child out of the fourth and bringing them home. If you are in a romantic love relationship and it's not committed yet, it's not cohabitational, maybe a romantic sexual love story can then come back to the home, and meaning that you might start to live with that person between September the 4th and April 18th, with the emphasis on January 6th to April the 18th, when that's most likely to be the new narrative, dragging the lover into the home, right? Bringing it back in, because that's the story. Mars goes this way and comes back. Let's see if I can get that to annotate. Well, next one I'll annotate if needed. All right. We'll be doing updates every step of the way, because as Mars is moving through this part of your chart, he's going to be doing all kinds of things over the next few months. A final note, and I'll try to do this for all signs. Mars had his rise, his exaltation rise, January 27th or so, into the visible sky in Capricorn, your 10th house. This means that from January 27th of this year to January 26th, Mars is trying to exalt you in the house of your career to give you lasting gains and big results. I have a whole video on that in my big 2024 playlist. And this is a time when he's not feeling like he's able to deliver the goods, where you are going to have an exalted, superpowered, successful champion, climb any mountain, reach the peak of a career success between January of 2024 and January 26th. This is the dip when Mars is really not doing his very best in that regard. Taurus, sun, moon, and rising sign. Now, Mars is in your third house. Let's just draw a tarot card just for fun, guys. Play with me, right? I love tarot cards. I'm a tarot reader. The Ace of Cups. Mars is saying a new beginning in love, a new beginning in some kind of heart-based energy. Now, Mars is in your third house. If you're going to bring love into the story here, or a new opening of your heart chakra, it's going to be possibly to do with third house situations. Some of you Tauruses might find, for example, because Mars is that sexual energy, new romantic sexual energy peaking for you in local neighborhoods or travel opportunities. But mostly when Mars is here, he's a commuter. Like he goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And you might find yourself very, very busy, like moving, doing things, traveling in your local environment, lots of back and forth, a lot of commuting, driving, I don't know, a lot of long distance walking in your local environment. You're just busy moving around a lot. The fishbowl in which you swim, Mars, he's here. Don't forget September 4th to April 18th with a hiatus out of the sign, November 4th to December 6th. This is indicating a time, because he'll be moving into Leo. This is indicating a time where you're extremely busy in regards to aunts, uncles, cousins, nieces, and nephews, or younger sibling one under you, capturing a huge amount of your attention for some reason, and perhaps conflict with those people because Mars is simply the god of separation. So there is that as well. With Mars moving through the third house, if you are in the online world with social media, with blogs, with writing projects, with marketing, selling, and communicating, you're getting a lot done. I mean, this is working hard. Yes, Mars gives you this opportunity, sure, every 2 years. And as I already mentioned to everybody, he was already here last year, and the dates of last year's shorter transit through this part of your sky is data, papers, so many papers. It was last March to May, basically, March 28th to May 21st. Maybe you were more busy in all of the things I just outlined. Mars is your action, Mars is your decisions, Mars is your will, and you're just busy March 28th to May 21st last year. But this is like a long stay. So this is going to take you through till April the 18th. Mars down here could also indicate passionate learning. I mean, yes, he's in the sign of his fall. He would rather be up here in academic, colleges and campuses, but in the third house, he's more likely taking like a knitting class, how to change a tire, vocational, more skills-based qualities of learning, webinars, seminars. If you are somebody who teaches those, you're gung-ho, you're making lots of action happen. If you're someone who wants to learn that kind of stuff, then you're going to be very excited and passionate and driven and willpowered up to learn those sorts of things over these months ahead. You had some energy of this kind of transit where Mars is also squaring the nodes of fate in July of 1968, June of 1987, and April of 2006. What would have been initiated at that time may be similar to what Mars can do here, squaring the south node in an applied square in your sixth house. It may look like you have a desire to quit a job, a desire to sever or end some situation connected to rental situations. And quite often, especially given it starts off this time with a Mercury and Leo, you might find you're severing a lease, breaking a legal contract, or breaking a lease contract of some kind, or just terminating or ending a lease as a tenant or even as a landlord. Generally speaking, when Mars is in a square to the south node, which already wants you to let go of something, if you have any self-undoing addiction, bad habit pattern, too much of something you shouldn't ingest, habit or addiction, doesn't matter. I mean, Venus south node, Mars square, it's time to let go of those things in order to improve your physical wellness and your health, especially with Chiron still transiting your 12th. Since 2019, you've all been looking pretty closely at the ways your addictions or your patterns or habits are not working for you, especially for your physical wellness, but also your mental and emotional health as well, indicated by the moon in the house of health. So there's a strong indication that for some of you, Taurus is one of the big themes of September 4th to April the 18th, maybe the urge to let go and cut off and end some addiction. To do it in a third house way could be by taking some educational situation, like learning something that helps you create the momentum to quit something. All righty. If you want to travel, Mars loves traveling. He's trains, planes, and automobiles, ferries, and anything that moves is piloted. He's in your third house, which is travel. Some Tauruses may find themselves doing a significant amount of travel during this time, September 4th to April 18th, everything from commuting locally to traveling domestically. You might be more busy in the travel area of life than you have ever imagined yourself to be. So let's see what happens there. It is September 16th when Mars squares the nodes of fate, indicating a critical turning point with work, jobs, pets, rentals, and situations to do with addictions and self-undoing. So be ready for that as well. Reminding you as well that this is a 2-year story. It'll take Mars 2 years from this September to come back to your third house. Therefore, it's also saying major life changes of a great magnitude, not seen since August of 1977 to April of 1978, to make major shifts for yourself regarding third house matters. Changing schools, changing neighborhoods, separating away from siblings or relationships with those people. So keep that in mind. I'm thinking of my younger Taurus sister, and this would have dovetailed with me going off to university within the 2 years after this happened in 1977, 78. So separation from a sibling, just very literally, one of the siblings went off to school, the other one stayed home and was still in high school. So there's that thing, that simple, easy understanding of what's possible here. But I did get the Ace of Cups for you. So you're opening into a deeper heart-centered journey. And because when Mars first ingresses into this, he is in a square to Venus, it can bring you romantic love for you. And when I mean romantic love, I mean hot, passionate, sizzling, and sexy. So some of you, especially with Mars ruling your 7th house of long-term committed love, may find yourself in a deeply soul-mated, passionate new love story, likely an office romance or someone you meet through work settings as a result of this, not just between September 4th and April 18th, but possibly within the 2-year window that follows. This is September 4th ingress of Mars into your 3rd house. Look for that possibility. And you're probably wondering why I'm bringing this up, because it's whenever a planet ingresses, we want to see what other planets are in place. And that gives us a flavor or a clue of what's really happening. All righty, Gemini, sun, moon, and rising sign. Let's draw a card, first of all, just for fun, out of the tarot deck I have handy, created by a Scorpio rising girlfriend of mine, which is really cool. Well, you can't make this stuff up. I just drew the Ace of Cups twice after shuffling the deck. This doesn't surprise me because it's a new beginning and new love energy, or a flourishing or new growth of love, or the possibility of pregnancy or fertility matters. And the reason that doesn't surprise me is because we do have the Venus story going on here in the house of romantic love, but in a sizzling square to Mars. So Mars brings in the hot, passionate, romantic energy for sure. Let's break it down. So keeping with the basics, if you go back to 1977, August to April of 78, you had a long stay of Mars moving through your 2nd house of money, earnings, possessions, financial resources, and food style. Guaranteed this. I don't know if in 77, 78 you changed your food style, because a lot of us were too young to think that way. But Mars here is the god of elimination in the house of what you eat. So there's a major shift of your food style, and he rules the house of sickness, and this will improve your health. So if you're a Gemini sun, moon, or rising, and I don't care which, you're going to note that you're urged by the sky, and natural life forces will take you in the direction of a dramatic food style change. You always were a meat eater, now you're a vegan. You're always a vegan, now you eat meat. I don't know what it is. You change your food style. And if you need to eliminate anything that you put through your nose or your mouth that's bad for your health, you'll get rid of it. End of story. So there's that story happening. Yay you. And it will improve health. That's the good news. That's why I love it. Also, with Mars moving through your 2nd house, he's going to want you to increase your financial wellness. He's the self-starter, the independent entrepreneur, the go-getter here. He's a go-getter in the house of resources. A lot of people born to entrepreneurial stories, I have Mars in here natally, will be easily able to do their own business in life and make their own money, consulting, freelancing, whatever. They don't need to be in an employment environment to succeed. When Mars is here, moving through your 2nd house, he is also the ruler of your house of career gains, particularly. And so with the North Node, it's kind of indicating not just between September 4th and April the 18th, but over the 2 years that follow his September 4th ingress, an increase of financial well-being connected to your career and work matters. Now, he sometimes, because he is fallen, has a hard time containing spending here. He could exalt your long-range investments and retirement monies and royalty income, but sometimes, Mars and debility in a house of earnings and savings can also be debilitated spending. You might find you're spending more than you want. And if you do, it's likely to do with if you're an entrepreneur, spending to develop or invest in your entrepreneurial business, or if you have children, for some reason, a lot of money may be going out for expenditures to do with one of your children. And this could look like a temporary, like, what the hell, September 4th to April 18th, I'm spending just too much money in general. I've got to rein it in. Long range, however, the story would be positive. The reason is that Mars's rise to exaltation in January of 2024 indicates between January of 24 and January 26 a very large increase in your treasure chest monies of chunky money. Unearned income, royalty income, bank loans, mortgages, increases, leveraging money, investment money, money that you can get from inheritances, and this, or taxes that work better. I have a progressed Gemini sun. I finally incorporated, so I don't have to give the government so much money as an independent entrepreneur. So this energy here means that's where you're going to succeed. And temporarily, you may feel like September 4th to April 18th, you're not on the mark. Your money is going out faster than it might be coming in for some reason. You have a very strong voice here. My Mars is a warrior, hero, champion, advocate voice. And so you might find that you're caring about voicing things in the world that have to do with mothers, nurturing, caring, family, home. You know, it's like being that patriotic voice, that nationalistic voice, but your voice becomes more strongly aligned with the spirit of a Mars in Pisces, in Cancer, you know, for the months that he's here. He does slide into your third house and come back, as you know. Generally speaking, it could indicate as he goes into your Leo sky, December 6th, and slides back January the 8th, it could indicate something to do with dragging some third house stories into your second house. Now, third house stories are things to do with, like, if it's about money, money you make through buying, selling, marketing, writing, communicating, especially in the online world or in the local neighborhood. You know, like maybe you have a shop or a local brick and mortar business of some kind, but you go into this part of the sky with Leo with a lot of excitement, and you pull back and bring it back to the second house. So it can be that you're going to sort of start up something new, November the 4th to January the 6th, November the 4th to January 6th, when we have the Leo story happening. And if you do start something new in your financial matters connected to the third house, you could travel, and the travel fortifies some new developments in your earnings. You could start a new website. You could teach a new product. You could study something that allows you to increase your financial wellness. You know, maybe I'm in a progressed sun, progress is secondary to natal. In Gemini, maybe I'll study stock trading or something, but something you could learn, for example, or teach between November the 4th and January the 6th, because that's the Leo energy, could be pulled back into the earnings house, indicating January 6th to April 18th, you're making money because of what you did in the shorter term transit of Mars through your third house. And go back to, I don't know if I told you this, 1987, June, April of 2006, and then of course the September 16th. These were times when Mars moving through Cancer square the nodes of fate. And having Mars move through your second house, squaring the node in your fifth, could indicate a difficult moment, a turning point in a shorter term romantic affair where you might want to terminate the relationship. We're not talking about long-term committed love. We're talking about short-term dating and romantic stories. If that's not you, then don't worry about it. You almost want to make a massive change or turnaround situations that's pretty fated regarding one of your children. And of course, Mars is in the house of speech, but also money. So money and conversations with children are important. And also, if you are potentially a man or a woman who could be wanting to conceive a child, just knowing that Jupiter's here until next June and Venus is here at this time on the node, soulmate child is conceived, but the Mars thing can indicate challenges mid-September. So be careful there. That could just be that a conception feels wobbly, right? You might need bed rest, or some challenges are going on here. If you have conceived a child, and you need to be more cautious around the fertility story itself in the middle of the month of September, just a possibility. All right, I think that's what I've got for you. We're going to move to Cancer, Cancer, Sun, Moon, and Rising. And just for fun, let's draw a tarot card. Why the heck not? What's going on? Well, first of all, yay. It looks like the 10 of Wands is what the universe wants you to know about. Well, that's when we reach a peak of something and we're getting ready to start something new. All wands are spiritual and all wands are creative. And we're kind of coming up against the border or the boundary of something where we know that we have to move past it. And then there's something new that's going to emerge on the other side. Sometimes it's what we snip away that really gives us the power to end something. So Mars is the god of snipping, ending, and cutting. The scissors are in your hand. The scissors are in the sign of your sun, moon, or rising. Mars on moon is mother. Mars on sun is father. You may be ending relationships with those people, like, terminating, ending, cutting away, separating from. Mars on sun can be career changes. Mars on moon can be home changes. Mars in your ascendant means you can change anything you want. You got the change knife in your hand, the change sword in your hand, the change scalpel in your fingers. So you're going to let yourself make changes, make decisions to make changes, take actions on your decisions to make changes in your life. You're at a point where you've come to a completion that's time to let go, 10 to move into a new one, a new beginning. And what would you want to complete? Well, there's so many things you can complete. There is a square to the nodes of fate and Venus in the house of home, property, and land, and simply means some of you may want to end or separate from the home you live in. If you're young enough, it could be leave your parents behind. If you're older, it could be leave the home you own or rent. It's time for something new. And the moon doubles down on that with Venus. You may like your home. It may be balanced and pleasurable, cozy, and nurturing, but is there a need to let go of that home? And will you see that to be true between September 4th and April 18th? And if you do, with Mars ingressing into your second house, it's for financial reasons. Mars says, oh, I'm going to be in Leo, November the 4th to January the 6th. Let me see what we need financially and pull back into your house of decisions. You go, we need the money, or it's a good time to sell. So there's a change, or it could be a good time to buy, but self-notice to let go of some place in which you are cohabitating, living your domicile, your domestic life. And that usually means a surrendering of land, home, or property of some kind. The energy of Mars moving through your first house is also to remind you that he exalted your seventh house by rising in the end of January to visible stature in Capricorn over here. And this is indicating that you're going to be able, therefore, to probably exceed your expectations when it comes to your clients, audience, and marketplace, business partnerships, and marriage environment. That is going to have an exaltation by Mars, but Mars is still cutting and ending. So unfortunately, with Pluto here still, some of you may be looking at the end of a long-term committed love relationship if you're in one. Otherwise, don't big deal. Mars is the ruler of your house of children and romantic love. Mars is basically saying, as he squares Venus, the goddess of love, changes in your home life revolving children or romance. So you may cut away from the romantic quality and the sexual quality of the relationship. Maybe you want to go celibate. Maybe you're going to have some severing or cutting from a child, especially if the child is connected to being in the home. And that could just simply being a child leaves the home, and Mars is getting you to maybe push the child gently out of the nest or make a declarative ultimatum for that kid to move if that's something that you need or want to do. And if you leave your home behind, of course, the kid will have to change homes as well. So many layers to that, right? Every time Mars moves through the sign of Cancer, it's very short, right? It was last year, March 28th to May 21st. And on average, it's every 2 years. So March 28th to May 21st, 2023, yes, you had this transit. It was short-lived. Think about some of the themes I've talked about regarding what matters that to do with children, matters to do with your home, your nest, to lover, sex, etc. But this time it's long-winded, and it's such a rare, not seen since August of 77 to April of 78. And you may have not had comparables. You may not have been an adult even. So what this looks like for you is completely probably different. In general, this transit of Mars kind of can flow out almost a couple of years later, just as a general principle. And so seeing Mars moving through this part of your sky may indicate some major changes in the next couple of years, and doesn't have to be September 4th to April 18th. It could be, but it doesn't have to be. So I would encourage you to think about how, if you want to make highly willpower decisions to change your home, to change your life in your home, to change the people you live with, this is very much possible for you. And the energy of Mars being the ruler of your 10th house of career, as he's making a square to the node there, indicates also some significant changes in not just your home, but the way you proceed in your career and what your career looks like. And you may feel a pivotal mid-September energy where there's an exact square to the nodes of fate, the kind of square to the nodes of fate we saw June of 1987 and April of 2006. So if you could remember feeling some pressure cooker around your career matters, where you needed to make some changes, and your home matters, if you were old enough to go back to, June of 1987 and April of 2006, roughly back then, these pressures for change were obviously occurring, and there may be comparables about change of job, change of home, change of residence, that kind of stuff. And of course, change of spouse or long-term lover, because you're looking right across with your sword at some other person. And you might go, basta, I've had enough. I've had enough of you. That client you don't want, that business partner that's not working, business partnership that's failing, or that marriage is just not your cup of tea. Already. Now, if you haven't hit the like button and you're in the live premiere, would you do that? Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. You know the drill. My Sky, I don't know if I promoted Sky Reader at the beginning of this video. I'm just going to take a little chocolate break and I will return right away. Okay, Leo, sun, moon, and rising sign. I got to get you guys. My head is like off the video. It's kind of funny. All right, so let's roll. Oh, hopefully I didn't adjust the sound crazy ass. All right, so we're moving into the next sign, which is our Leo, sun, moon, and rising sign people. And let's get rolling and talk about all about you with Mars moving through your 12th house. Now, look, 12th house is subtle. Let's just call it a spade a spade. The card is subtle because it's kind of offside. You're unconscious about it half the time. It's what you don't see that will be your problem, not what you do see. So it's good for meditation, spiritual enlightenment. It's good for hidden enemies. And got to watch for Mars there in his fall for someone who doesn't have your back. You've got the death and rebirth card in the tarot, which is transformation. So Phoenix rising from ashes, etc. Now, let's not get in the dark side of hidden enemies, but Mars here can mean you should be watchful, certainly for people who don't really have your back. And it's just a general vibe that you might find that some people seem to say, oh, you're amazing. And underneath the surface, they don't think you're amazing. And they could do something to undermine you, especially with Mars squaring the nodes of fate. And this is true mostly in the month of September, where you could be backstabbed or, come into some conflict with someone who suddenly shows up as an enemy or an adversary. And it would connect to things to do with either sibling relationships, the sibling one younger than you or two older than you, or matters connected to travel and academic settings or people in those settings. So just a thought, be watchful for that mid-September. But as a general bigger story here, you haven't had Mars spend, almost 6 months in your 12th house since the August of 1977 to April of 1978 time period. And therefore, that may be useful for some of you to go back and compare it. Mars here could help you eliminate addictions and bad habits and the ways you sabotage yourself and fall away from the best things for you, because that's what the 12th house is doing. It's falling away by the celestial motion from the first house of one's body and identity. So you might find yourself looking at this as an extended period of time, September the 4th to April the 18th. Well, this journey through Cancer is mostly happening, minus the time in Leo, which we'll get to, where you're really focused on your inner life, by going deeper, diving into, cutting away, severing things that aren't useful, including karma, past life stuff, childhood memories and patterns that don't serve you. Mars rules the house of your childhood. You could have a lot of soul work here, especially to do with growing up, things you learned from your family, things that you took on that may not be the most useful for you, that, you could learn something like money doesn't grow in trees, or bad messages like that you'll never amount to anything, or you'll never be a success story, ways that your childhood really just kind of pummeled you with messages that didn't work. Mars is really good from the 12th at eliminating fourth house shit. And so you may be in a process then of September 4th to April 18th doing that. And with an emphasis here, perhaps an emphasis here on November the 4th to January the 6th, when he's dipped into the house of you. And your identity is being really pared down, and you're really getting more action, decision-making power, particularly action and decision-making power, really amplified for you November 4th to January the 6th when he's in Leo, but you're still having to pull it all the way back to the 12th house and then somehow deal with it all. So you've got a lot of soul work, self-work doing this Mars transit, during this Mars transit. You might also notice that when he's here, you could really be going to battle for being alone. Like, you want your solitude, you want your aloneness, you want your contemplative time, and you may be really fighting for that or really having to push for it. If you are somebody who makes money in foreign land, foreign shores and overseas revenue, this can be a time of working really hard, passionately to get that going. Mars here can engage passionate study in something that you really love to do, particularly professionally for you. We'll get to why. So professional studies, professional learning. Mars also could get you traveling abroad. He's in a house of far off foreign shores. He loves to travel. Some of you might be really going for longer term travel, September 4th to April 18th, to countries other than the one you were born in. But also Mars exalted you when he rose on January 27th or so in your Capricorn 6th house of health and work. So a lot of his energy in the 12th can help eliminate addictions and self-undoing and bad habits to improve your health, or childhood patterns and childhood stories that get in the way of successful service and work stories where you're in the job that you love and you're doing the thing that you want. Because Mars is in the Artha 6th house exaltation story for you. He wants to improve your money, your resources, and your career success stories between January of 2024 and January of 2026. But maybe you have to uncover, dig up, and look more squarely at your own self-sabotage, self-undoing, even including addictions if you have them. Now, Mars is going to also square the nodes of fate in a way that he did in 1968, 1987, so July of 68, June of 87, and April of 2006. And you may be able to compare something to those timeframes, because as he squares the nodes of fate in North Node Aries, South Node Libra, the stories are back. This could indicate some kind of tension in your life, very intense, with siblings, two older or one younger. This also could be major turning points and tension regarding travel and learning situations that are fated, and decisions are being made and tested. Things are being tested by Mars here. As he squares the South Node in your third house with Venus and with the moon, a connection in particular to a younger sibling may be imperiled. It's possible that a younger sibling may be experiencing a health challenge, for Mars is in the house of hospitals. And if that happens, it will be something you'll notice with a younger sibling September the 4th through to April the 18th, but with an emphasis on the sooner than later, meaning most likely between September and January, as the nodes are still in the Libra and the Aries axis in that time. And so a health challenge with a younger sibling most likely could be a story squaring the South Node in the house of younger sibling here, right? And we could just entertain the possibility of that. You're dealing with that story. If you want to travel, you can travel anywhere. You can travel long distance and short distance, but Mars is in the house of foreign shores. And for some of you, you may have some destined unexpected travel between September 4th and January to far off foreign shores and foreign lands because of the nodal axis whole sign square. And lastly, I find a lot of times when people have a Mars transit, go back and compare, for example, the last Mars transit here that wasn't just the regular everyday time frame of, this was March the 28th of 2023 to May 21st of 2023. During that time frame, you might have done certain things that are like eliminating from your life the things that are sabotaging your life. Just make it simple. Go back and see what you did then. A sustained period of this elimination process, really through next April, could be quite profound. And, you may be able to release something that is connected to family of origin, mom and dad growing up, literally, and karmic complications in your life, especially if they are causing you to be your own worst enemy in some way, So big shifts in the stories of you vis-a-vis the family of origin, karma, lessons, etc., in a way that you've never had at such a depth unless you were alive and remember what was going on in 1977, August to April of 1978. And this embeds also the square to the nodes of fate, giving even more intensity. A crow just flew by for you guys. What does that mean? I don't think I drew a tarot card for you. I've been drawing one for every sign. I got the Two of Pentacles. If I drew one for you and I'm repeating myself, well, now I've got the Two of Pentacles indicating choices, duality, A or B. It's usually about things that are tangible to do with resources. Mars rules your fourth house of home, property, and real estate. Are you going to make some big changes regarding home, property, and real estate? Tangible resource changes, maybe in the mix where you want to sell or buy or move or change your home. That's a possibility with this kind of sky. Over the next 2 years, Mars will be back in the sign of Cancer in August, September of 2026. Virgo, sun, moon, and rising sign, it looks like you're going to experience the transit of Mars moving through your 11th house of good spirit. Now, Mars up here wants to cut, eliminate, and end, and likely these will be ends of friendship. Some friends will move away. My daughter has a good friend who's from Ireland who's moving back. We're traveling the world, maybe moving to Australia next. And so the end of friendships as friends move away. This girl's moving in September away. So just friendships will end. Yeah, my daughter's a Virgo rising, because of whatever separation. So time apart, separation, or endings with friendships that are important to you. Your larger groups of friends and belonging. Another Virgo rising girlfriend, I think she's going to move to Europe for a year or two. I'll be separated from her. So you see what I mean? And interestingly, it's not just about what you're doing September 4th to April 18th in this long stay of Mars in your 11th house minus a dip into the house of foreign lands. Right? He'll dip into this part of your foreign shores, foreign land, self-undoing addictions, bad habits, and patterns. Leo, he'll dip there for a bit on December 6th to January the 6th, right? So that time frame, December 6th to January the 6th, you might be, November the 4th to January the 6th, November the 4th to January 6th, Mars is in Leo. So during November 4th to January the 6th, you might find yourself indeed traveling to foreign shores, foreign lands, but making decisions to cut away addictions, self-undoing, bad habits and patterns. But nonetheless, the bigger story is, who are you separating from? What people are these? These can be colleagues, coworkers, friends, large groups of belonging that you want to exit stage left from, as well as potentially change and sever and cut and begin new directions of goals and dreams for your very own life. Now, Mars here in this cutting, severing, ending vibe can also put you into an ending in a job because you make money resourcefully. This is the earnings from your 10th house of career, and you may sever or end those ways you make money. And although this is a transit that's happening September 4th to April the 18th, it is really a 2-year story because it's not until August, September of 2026 Mars comes back to Cancer. So it's what he's put in motion for the next 2 years. It's his 2-year narrative, and you may be cutting, ending, and severing things here that really are going to put you out of a job or end a job or leave a job or retire from a job, and also wholesale change your large groups of friends and belonging. May be connected to far off foreign lands and shores for some of you, as well as the ability to release yourself from addictions and self-undoing. This kind of energy played out pretty well the same way back in August 31st of 1978 to April of 1970, so August 31st of 1977 to April of 1978. And you might want to compare notes to how you did this wholesale clearing and cleansing and changing of friendship groups and changing of career and earning structures, etc. If you were old enough to do that, some of you weren't. My Virgo rising girlfriend, I think she moved away from home and left all her childhood friends behind at that point. What were you up to in that window of time? Now, this transit of Mars through this part of the sky is also involving a square to the nodes of fate, the same kind of square to the nodes of fate that occurred on June of 1987, April of 2006, and then we're back again. If you want to see if there's any comparisons, Mars squaring the nodes of fate is in a money problem here. He's squaring your earnings and squaring the North Node. Is this going to mean in the shorter term, even September through January, an energetic shift of the way you make money, the way you share your financial resources with a spouse or marriage partner, the way you deal up with money that you're earning versus money that you're investing? The retirement money versus the daily money, the inheritance money versus the hustle money. Those monies are being squared by Mars, and there will be changes for sure in your financial structures being looked at by you, or decisions being made by you about that money, particularly if it pertains to career monies involved as well. That is true between September 4th and January, because I like the nodes to be still in the zone of 8 and 2. Now, energetically, of course, Mars is stamping this imprint into the next 2 years. Could indicate you're going to Mars square your house of earnings, you're going to be changing your job or quitting your job or changing your career path and no longer making money in the same way. Mars is also squaring the house of what you put in your mouth. And there's a lot of you who will probably let go of the thing that you want, but you shouldn't eat or smoke or sniff in your life. You get the gist, right? Some of those are going to change as well. And just food styles, it's a south node in the house of food styles. Time to let go of the Haagen-Dazs, the ice cream, the meat, because it's not good for your body. Trying to change your dietary style is a Mars story here, from the square to the south node in your second house of food. I think as well, if you want to consider that you've experienced this kind of cleansing the food style energy last year, March 28th to May 21st in 2023, what were you up to April and May of 23? Were you in that 6-week window cleaning up your health act, your food act, your dietary style? Did you make some changes to your financial structures and how you make money? Go back and compare. This is a deeper, more profound version of the short version of last March 28th to May 21st. Okay. And I didn't draw a card for you. I forgot. Let's draw a card for you, Virgos, right? The card I'm drawing for you is the 6 of Swords. Now, let's talk about that card, because all swords are what we need to decide on. They're mental cards. The 6 can bring success and triumph, but also sometimes we just call the 6 of Swords the move card, because there's people going somewhere in a boat. Now, Mars is in the sign of his fall, and he is in a rulership position in your chart over the 3rd house of neighbors and neighborhood. Perhaps a flowing and easy change of neighbors and neighborhood will come because of a relocation as a result of this particular Mars transit. If that is to come to pass, it's likely something that could occur over the next 2 years, changing your home because you want to change your neighbors or neighborhood environments, for example. And also, Mars exalted your 5th house of romantic love, children, sexuality, entrepreneurship, and creativity when he rose in your 5th house in January of this year, 24. And that story lasts till January of 2026. And so indicating a possible also exaltation of romance, love, sexuality, and independent entrepreneurship. But I would say this, with Mars in his fall in your 11th house, you won't see the results of that romantic sex, love, passion, entrepreneurial success, or good things happening with and from your children, including fertility stories. You won't see those to be true September the 4th to April the 18th, as Mars keeps dipping in and out of Cancer. So there's an exception to the exaltation rule in this regard. But I can see you making a change of neighborhood. I don't think this looks like, if Mars is going to move you guys off of this transit, you're not changing to one side of the country to the other, or even major city changes. Most likely the same location, but a different neighborhood involved in your life over the next year, 2 years. It could show up sooner. It could show up between September 4th and April the 18th. A neighborhood relocation narrative. Libra, Sun, Moon, and Rising. First things first, Mars is the god of change and decisions and action, and he's in your career house, cutting, ending, and severing. Last seen here, March 28th of 2023 to May 21st of 2023. So did you make some significant changes, Libra, in your job, work, career matters? Did you leave a job leave you? Did you have a lot of passion where you're working your ass off in being super powered and strong as you could be in a career path last spring? Well, if so, though, Mars is in his fall, and it may have been working hard, but feeling like you have no time alone at home, no time in the nest. You might have been struggling, and you might have been intensely busy, but not particularly happy. Also, the energy is suggesting, because Mars rose in his exaltation January of this year and giving you until January of 2026, a 2-year promise, and he wants to exalt you when it comes to property, land, home, real estate, and things you do in and from your home. Exalting meaning being successful. But this is a dip in that success. Again, September 4th to April 18th, when you feel like you're working hard, but your home life sucks, or you're busy wanting to quit a job, or a job quits you, and it struggles, it's intensity, it's eliminating things in the workspace. If you're self-employed, you could eliminate things you're doing in your self-employment entrepreneurial business is just dragging you down. So there's a lot of passion, drive, hard work, and elimination possibilities in September 4th to April 18th in the work and career space. Mars is also not going to be doing a long stay like this for a long time now, like another, 30 years. So the last time Mars spent this much time, 50 years ago, traveling through your 10th house was August 31st of 1978 to 77 to April of 1978. And if you're old enough, you might go back and say, what changes were you making in your career, and what struggles did you have around home versus career matters? And that can be something to reflect on. This is a little bit different because Mars is also this time now squaring the nodes of fate in the way he also did in June of 1987 and April of 2006. Those could be indicating similar storylines, because as Mars squares the nodes of fate in September, particularly the middle of the month, you could come into a critical turning point regarding the matters of your connections to audience, marketplace, and business partners here, and to your very own sense of self, because the South Node Venus and Moon here are asking you to let go of something that you thought was important because you like it. It's a pleasure, it's a value, it's something to do with how you see your life. I value this. I would like to possess this. This brings me joy and pleasure. And South Node says, let go of that part of your life. It's not right for you anymore. Something has to be released. And it might be how you reach out to seventh house people. That can include your marriage partner, a business partner, or the way you reach out to a marketplace, an audience in some career endeavor. There's a change that wants to happen in the middle of September. It can also be a change that wants to happen from September 4th till January, when we still have the nodes of fate trundling on through the Libra Aries axis. And so big changes in partnerships, in love and business, and also in what do you really want in your life? What do you truly desire? That's what Venus is asking. You're letting go of outworn, outdated desires and pleasures that don't work for you anymore, especially regarding your career desires and pleasures, and how you wish to be also engaged in committed love. You're getting over a Chiron wound that started in 2019 about how you experience committed love, and a square to this marriage house can end a long-term committed love story if you're in one between September the 4th and April the 18th. Mars travels into Leo November the 4th through to January the 6th. And from November the 4th to January the 6th, you're also maybe busy cutting away friends, groups of belonging, friendship circles, exiting. Now, sometimes that happens naturally. You break up with a marriage type partner and you keep certain friends and some fall away. That could be something like that. Or you break up with a business partner and you lose some of your larger collegiate settings, or you quit your job and you're no longer friends with the people at work. So there's a changing here of friendship circles, November the 4th to January the 6th, as well as maybe a cutting or ending of ways that you create money in your career as well, November 4th to January 6th. But then Mars drags his ass back into your 10th house, and all of the 11th house paring, pruning, and cutting works to benefit you in your career space anyway. So you'll notice January 6th to April 18th, you're doing well and you're making better decisions and you're more actively engaged in a powerful, solid way in your career story. And that solid directionality for your career is the best February 24th to April the 18th. So if you feel like you're slogging in the career story, major up level as Mars goes direct on February 24th at 17 Cancer. Like if you're midheaven is near 17 Cancer, you're on a leapfrog springboard to new success, February 24th to April the 18th, as Mars continues to complete his journey through your 10th house. And Finally, Mars is the ruler of your second house of financial resources, particularly earnings from your career, as well as money you can save and money you need to spend. And because he's in a whole sign trine to his home kingdom of Scorpio and your earnings house from the career space, indicates a general vibe that from September the 4th to November the 4th, and then later again, January the 6th to April the 18th, the narrative of his transit through the sign of Cancer is to increase your financial success from work and career storylines. So you're up leveling in that part of your life in particular, but it still means that your love life, significant others, and business partnerships receive that square and can be under a great deal of challenge. And I wouldn't be surprised if there are some endings and completions in long-term marriages or long-term live-in relationships for a lot of Libras. If you're in them, don't start a new relationship under this intensity. It will always be plagued by a Mars square to your marriage house. Stay away from new dating opportunities if you can. And now we're going to insert Scorpio into this extremely long video because somehow the Lori brain with the software missed you guys. So we're adding Scorpio for the Mars transit. You guys don't even know. You probably wouldn't even know if I didn't tell you. So Scorpio, let's talk about your narrative as Mars makes his journey through the sign of Cancer. And as I tell everybody, you might want to go back to, if you can remember, that long stay of Mars in Cancer back in 1977, August 31st to about the middle of April to 1978. Otherwise, let's talk about this time around. So Scorpio, Mars is the ruler of your sign, and Mars is moving through a place in your chart that has to do with the ninth house. And when you go to the ninth house, you might ask yourself about the meaning of life. Mars is up there in a Dharma house, a spiritual wisdom and truth house, the meaning of one's life, the purpose of life, deep existential and philosophical metacosmos questions. I'm wondering if this won't be a period of time where you're in a bit of a deeper soul search, Scorpios, as to what it is you wish to accomplish and where you want to go with those accomplishments. Also, there is in the sky with this placement the potential for quite a bit of travel. Lots of times Mars will go off to foreign shores and foreign lands, and therefore, as Mars travels through this part of the sky, September 4th to April 18th, minus a break in Leo from November the 4th to January 6th, you may indeed, therefore, September, October, and then January through to mid-April, be doing a lot of travel. That can be pilgrimages, adventures, journeys abroad. It may also involve law and legal matters. The ninth house can be where you're having to go to court over something and go to bat to fight for something that you want, to receive justice. And so you may indeed be receiving justice and battling for justice. It can be through anything. With Jupiter in your eighth house, Scorpio, you may be fighting for the justice of your inheritance. Maybe there's money that you have to squabble about from separating assets from your significant resources from a marriage partner in a separation or divorce. Those kinds of battles can happen when Mars is in the ninth house, especially with Jupiter, the chunky money shared resources god, in your eighth house. One thing about Mars in the ninth house, Mars is a god of ending, cutting, and separating, and he does flow to you in a very positive way. So you don't mind the feeling. And it might actually be that you will begin to separate out things in your life that you don't need, connected to ninth house matters. Now, you know, sometimes ninth house could be publications, book publishing, academic settings. And when Mars is up here, you're either passionately engaged in publications, podcasting, university, college matters, or you're cutting, severing, and ending something in that area of your life, even just finishing, just crossing a finish line of some sort. When Mars is up here and he's flowing to you, which is wonderful, right? He's also looking across the way at your third house, which is the house of a sibling, one younger than you, neighbors, aunts, uncles, cousins, and the neighborhood environment. And possibly there's going to be some conflict in the next, September 4th to April 18th window of time with those people. So just be aware of that, because Mars's sword is aiming down to the third house from the ninth house. But again, the third house and the ninth house are both educational and travel houses, and Mars there for such a long duration could instigate you going into educational settings, learning, wanting to learn, being excited, passionate to learn, or again, going into some kind of combat mode regarding other people from the third house, the cousin from hell, the uncle you need to dispense with. when Mars is here, I want to remind you that he squares the nodes of fate the same way he did in July of 1968, June of 1987, and April of 2006. So squaring the North Node as it moves through the sign of Aries, and the Libra South Node transit is one of those things that happens only every 18 to 20 years, and it's back. So if you can go back to your life, for instance, if you're old enough, say April of 2006, what major changes were happening, or June of 1987, Mars brings change, new directions, new decisions regarding your 12th house and your 6th house axis. And the 6th house is about work, pets, rental, tenancies, and health matters, and sometimes debts. The energy of the 12th house is self-undoing and self-sabotage, and you may be actually looking at major changes and addictions and addictive substance use, or ways that you are your own worst enemy, as Mars from the house of God, the 9th house, is able to indicate a change of direction as Mars squares the South Node in the 12th house. Venus is in there as well, and there could be a major change to some pleasure in your life that brings difficulty to your health and wellness. You may cut the weed, cut the cigarettes, cut the wine, choose your vice, right? A lot of this energy could be also fueled by and infused by like a higher mission, a higher purpose, a divine mandate to quit, but also fertility and pregnancy and romantic reasons as well, because Mars is trining that part of your house. A lot of people clean up their health act when they want to conceive a child. A lot of people clean up their health act if they're having reproductive or sexual problems. So any of these things are possible. I'm not sure, but just bringing to bear that what might happen as Mars squares the nodes of fate and activates this house of addictions and the house of health, but also flows to the 5th house of romance, fertility, and children. If you're old enough to have grandchildren, the 9th house is grandchildren, and possibly maybe there's some conflict or difficulties with one of your grandchildren, or they're having the difficulties, and it's pulling your attention into the narrative September 4th to April the 18th. With Mars sliding into Leo, which is your 10th house of career and reputation, on November 4th to January the 6th, you're going to put a lot of focus on your work at that time. You're going to be driven, passionate, and focused. But some of you may quit, especially if your IC is up there. It can be that you're fired or you quit, either one, a job. Why would you do that? With all that 9th house activity for legal reasons or travel reasons, I'm not sure. You may take a job hiatus, or you may take a job break, or you may indeed leave behind work. But if you're not doing that to November 4th to January 6th, you're working hard. You're in a super, intensity of focus, drive, action, decisions, and you're working really, really hard during that window of time. Mars only makes it to 17 degrees of Cancer before he turns around and heads back into Leo. And so anybody in the 9th house, and some of you might have your floating midheaven, like in the 9th house, not the 10th. And so if your midheaven, the high noon of your chart in whole sign houses, is near 17 degrees of your 9th house, give or take 3 on either side, this is also going to be a change of career just from the 9th house transit, just so you know. So changes in work and career can happen both from the 9th house and from the 10th house. Mars is going to be able to create a flowing relationship with Lord Saturn in a whole sign flow and an aspectual flow to Saturn in your 5th house. With a flow from Mars in the 9th to Saturn in the 5th, long range creative projects like books, writing projects, music projects, anything entrepreneurial or creative will have some legacy or lasting value. And it actually opens up possibilities for successful publishing outcomes in book publishing or anything you would publish, like produce, publish, put into the world. That is the 9th house. So shorter term communications projects, no, not like sending an email, but books, maybe a serial podcast, maybe getting something like that created from the flow between the Saturn in your 5th house and Mars in your 9th house. And Saturn in your 5th house is also the house of romantic love and romance, and Mars is turbocharging your 9th house of travel. Maybe there's a way to lift some of the intensity of difficulty you may experience with your romantic life as you are working hard at something else during some travel opportunities between September 4th and April the 18th. And anything else I'd say about this story? Mars trining Saturn is very good for working hard, right? But you're working hard in ninth house matters. And unless your floating MC is there, a lot of this Cancer transit for some of you will not be about work matters and career matters. It may be more about things to do with those foreign places, foreign people, academic settings, campuses, colleges, book publishing, etc. So stay tuned for that. That's a rare, super long stay of Mars through the sign of Cancer. And if there's anything I've forgotten, I apologize. I just want to give you guys too little time because I realize I'm just splicing you in on another day. I'll give you something I haven't talked about for anyone else. Mars will square Chiron during this journey, and this journey of squaring Chiron can heal a chironic wound in work. If you've been feeling like something about the work you do in the world is missing the mark, you're not quite on purpose, it feels like slavery and drudgery and duty instead of something of service and something that feels true for you. With the North Node Chiron energies activated, especially between September 4th and January, you just may be looking at the possibility of choosing to exit not just the job, but maybe even with the Mars transit later in Leo, the career itself. Finding a new direction in life around purpose, career, money, earnings, and work can be a very strong story for a lot of Scorpios, as this long and very rare Mars transit works on you in these stories between September 4th and April the 18th. All right, that's what I've got for you. I'll get this spliced into the long video. I hope that's useful and I hope you can use this. And remember, Mars is a planet that serves you. He's the planet that's a ruler of your sign. No matter where he goes and what he does, he's doing good by you. So he's working at, your Scorpio sun, he's working your career, your Scorpio moon, your home, nest, safety matters, and your emotional states. And if it's your ascendant, he's working anything he can in your life to help bring you better outcomes in general. All right, thanks for listening. And I hope you enjoy the mini splice of Scorpio in the middle of this. This is called the episode. This is the video of changing outfits in different days, I swear. Bye-bye, guys. Sagittarius, sun, moon, rising sign. This is Mars moving through your 8th house of chunky money. You don't earn this money. This money comes because of an inheritance, a book royalty check. This money comes because you leverage money on a mortgage, a bank, a shareholder, stock investment, or money you share with business and marital partners. So Mars cuts, ends, and severs a lot of time. Just a regular transit here of Mars for 6 weeks looks like you're fighting for the inheritance money. You're eliminating situations that cause problems in your longer range monies. And you might be also dividing assets in a marital separation, for example. So now we have a long version of that. We last saw Mars here in a short version last March 28th to May 21st last year. Now he's back for a long time. Yes, September 4th to April 18th, a lot of Mars energy going through your 8th house. This could be a very long, enduring process of getting clear about the money you have in your savings accounts, in your investment accounts, stock portfolios, things to do with your money you share with a partner in love or business. Mars is a malefic. You have to be careful. If you have a lot of investments in the markets and your whole retirement plan is built on that, be careful. Mars is not a good placement. He's fallen in the house of stock investments and 401ks and retirement funds, and you just want to be much more careful. Those are monies you share with others because you don't own the stock company. You own a share in it. So these are risky places for you. You must be very cautious here. September 4th to November 4th, January 6th to April 18th. Mars going through this part of your chart is reminding us that he hasn't done this since 1977, August to April of 1978. If you're old enough, did you have a downdraft in your monies in this kind of thing? Did you have a separation with a spouse and have to divide the assets? What went on? Because it's likely a repeat performance. Be careful here. Also Sagittarius with Mars here. If you're into the occult mysteries, magic, paranormal, supernatural, alchemical wisdom and knowledge, Hermetic traditions, this is the 8th house. Mars could get you diving passionately and deeply into aspects of reality that are much more occult and mysterious. And you may have done the same thing in 77, 78. Mars here will dip into Leo. He'll dip into Leo November 4th to January 6th, and he'll drag something back from the Leo zone. And what it could be is you're going to drag back something from the legal courts and justices. And again, if you're separating assets from a marriage, this is going to look like, mediation, judges, legal matters to do with that. So you'll see those more legalese stories maybe playing out. You may also be dragging something into your back end of royalty income, for instance, 8th house, from the house of book publishing. And book publishing is, of course, Mars's transit November the 4th to January the 6th, and you may be looking at how to pull money in to your longer range monies from podcasting, publishing, book publishing, more things that are 9th house. Qualitatively, also, Mars is in a square to the nodes of fate, which is giving it another edge. We saw him squaring the North Node this way and South Node this way. June of 1987 and April of 2006. So you might go back to those timeframes and see if you can compare notes. Because when Mars is squaring the North Node and the South Node, destined change is happening. And Mars is squaring your South Node. He's moving towards your South Node. So there may be a major end in a friendship or in a relationship with an elder sibling, one above you in particular. Friendship and elder sibling stories can come to a screeching ending halt during this time. You may also end a particular group of belonging, quit the club, quit the group for some reason. And Mars is also, of course, squaring in his Aries house, your North Node. Some major conflict about money, perhaps with a child, or difficulties with a child involving financial matters can occur in the middle of September. But even all of September, like September 4th through to January, well, we have a whole sign square from Mars to the nodes of fate. Now, I'm going to draw a card for you. Mars is indicating an interesting narrative. He exalted in his heliacal rise your Capricorn 2nd house back in January, the end of January of 2024, meaning that until January 26th, you're supposed to make more money. You're supposed to get your financial act together. You're supposed to succeed and exceed with proper dietary style and really good income and money and saving stories. But when he's in his detriment, fallen away to the 8th house, that truth may not be evident between September 4th and April 18th. You're going like, what exalted money? Money may feel hard. Mars may be cutting, ending, and severing. You may be selling off assets. He may be selling property because he trines Saturn. So you may be eliminating things and expenses that are in the way of your success in your financial matters. Okay. Now, the story that Mars wants you to know in the good old tarot, it's the 8 of Cups. It's not what you add, it's what you walk away from that's going to increase your success in life. All of the 8s can be cards of wealth and power and prosperity, but also elimination. So yes, he cuts away, walks away, leaves behind something. That sibling or friend relationship, elder sibling, could be about money as well. And you may have to leave behind a relationship because of squabbling with a sibling around inheritance money, for example. There's something there as well that potentially shows up for some of you, Sagittarius, is that elder sibling problem looks pretty gnarly. One above you, and it involves joint finances or money from inheritances, for example. Some of you may be looking at property selling and buying storylines during this transit over until April because of Saturn trine Mars here. And finally, Mars is the ruler of Scorpio, right? That's his own kingdom. And this is a house of far off foreign lands. And some of you may be making some changes in your life to do with far off foreign lands, home, property, and real estate, and potentially an auspicious relocation either to a foreign land or back home from a foreign land for some Sagittarius during the course of September 4th to April the 18th, and even longer, because Mars does not come back to your Cancer sky again, all right, again, until when? August, September of 26. So some of you in those 2 years between now and then may be relocating your home, and it may have connections to buying and selling or moving your home already to or from far off foreign shores and lands. And I think that's all I've got for you. I don't think I forgot anything here. So Capricorn, Mars is your exaltation lord, and that means you have a special relationship with him. And he is on your behalf, courtesy of him to you, back in the end of January of this year through to January of 26. He's saying, I want to exalt you in your health, in your identity, So if it's your Capricorn sun in your career, your Capricorn moon in your home, and your Capricorn ascendant, everything about you. I exalt you, he says. I bring you extra special dispensation and greater power. I'm your person. I've got this for you. So you're in a 2-year success window that you haven't seen since 1977 to 1978, because that's when he exalted Capricorn last. So wow. So this is a beautiful story. And this energy here can really open up a door of opportunity for you. And I think that you could find that this particular transit of Mars through your 7th house can bring you major changes in your long-term committed love stories. Now, if it's your career sun, it may be about business partnerships and opportunities through significant business and contractual others. Rising sign through marriage partners, and moon maybe other people significantly impacting home matters, especially your spouse. Now, Mars is in his fall in the 7th house, and he's going to be there September 4th to April 18th. And therefore, there's likely to be separation or time apart or distance between you and a committed business or love type partner, or you have some separation from some significant person in your life. And it just sometimes is plain old geographical. Try going back to March 28th last year to May 21st. That's when Mars traveled through this part of your chart. And you may have had some time apart from somebody that you're in a long-term relationship with, especially if you are a Capricorn ascendant. If you're a Capricorn sun, it may not apply, or moon. Mars here is making your significant other very aggressive if you have a partner, and maybe passive aggressive or very prone to emotional outbursts. And you may have a feeling, especially September 4th to November 4th and January 6th to April 18th, that your main squeeze is really gnarly, especially if you're a Cap rising, not a Cap sun and moon. You know, again, it's the rising sign people. This is your marriage type house. If you're a rising, this could be the end of that relationship, because Mars is the cut, sever, and end. He last went through the long-term committed love house this same way back in 1978, 77. This would have been August of 77 to April of 78. Did a long-term committed love story break apart? And was it cut and severed? And if you can remember that as a Cap rising, it could give you some indications of what may happen here, or just a lot of conflict in that time with a significant marriage type partner. Legal contracts belong and vows belong to the 7th house. Mars can break contracts, break agreements, cut and sever them. So if you have any kinds of legal contracts or vows that you have been attending to and diligently holding on to, you may break those agreements here. Mars is squaring the nodes of fate in a way we last saw June of 87 and April of 2006. And we're going to feel this September, October, the same energy. And so Mars says, I'm squaring the North Node, South Node axis in the house of work, career, and reputation, and home and property and real estate. Mars here could have you break an agreement, a lease agreement, have you travel from your home, have you exit stage left away from where you're living, and maybe connected to Rahu, foreign lands, travel to foreign lands, moving from your home to a foreign land, quitting your home. Also squaring, applied square to Venus, South Node, could indicate a change in the job, work, and career situation, especially with a South Node and Venus together. Could involve also the change of a relationship status in your life. I'm married, I'm divorced, I'm separated, mostly for the rising. If you have any comparison, go back. Did you have changes like that in June of 87 or April of 2006? Mars is the ruler of Scorpio, your 11th house, and he does flow to that house during his fallen state in your 7th house. So there can be some really positive developments that allow for an increase through business contracts, alliance agreements, business contracts and alliances and business partnerships to increase your financial gain in your career. Mars also can say that he wants to help you change significant relationships and friendship groups as well. He's not going to always be in the sign of Cancer. He does dip into Leo, though, on November the 4th through to January the 6th. And you're going to drag back 7th, 8th house stories to your 6th house. So money from inheritances, money from a sibling three older than you, like if there's four siblings altogether, like there's one sibling above you, the next oldest, and the third oldest. So the very oldest sibling is the house of the seventh house for you. And therefore, conflict, aggression, or changes regarding that sibling relationship, because Mars moves into the eighth house, he's dragging shared resources connected to the oldest sibling, three above you, into the story. So there may be money coming from an elder sibling toward you for some reason, including money from wills and bequeathments as a possibility for some Capricorns. And the time frame for that story to be obvious to you would be November the 4th to January the 6th. I'm going to draw a card for you and see what the sky says. The card I've got for you is the Nine of Cups. Wow, harmony. But it's more than harmony. The Nine of Cups is like experiencing an exquisite sense of pleasure and enjoyment emotionally and satisfactorily. Like it's a deep sense of harmonious satisfaction and enjoyment in life itself. Beautiful, beautiful energy for you. Well, Mars doesn't give it to you by adding things, but by eliminating things. Remember that. Quite often when I see the Nine of Cups or the Ten of Cups, if I can think of the satisfaction of one's life because you have the resources needed to create that satisfaction, because he is dragging money out of the eighth house and bringing it into your seventh. Again, where is this money coming from? If you're in a long-term committed love story, your partner may get a lot of money coming into their life and be dragging it into the union, which is wonderful. But there's ways that you're going to pull some eighth house chunky money into a significant relationship story with someone other than you. Again, the eldest sibling, three siblings up from you, the sibling three older than you, or a marriage partner, or a business contract or business partnership narrative. Let's face it, you're dealing with the last gasp of Pluto, September, October, mid-November, through the house of you, which can wealth you up, but it's such an intensity, it's such a profound experience. And that is a story that Mars is noting as he travels here in the fall, September, October, mid-November. He's opposite Pluto, especially around November the 3rd and 4th. Especially around November 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, major turning points in your life regarding business contracts, sibling three older, and marital type relationships, major shifts going on at that time. Be aware of that. Aquarius, sun, moon, and rising sign. What's happening here, folks? Well, let me take a quick look at a message that popped in, but I've got you because I am one of you. The energy of this story asks you to consider history. If you can remember, Aquarians, sun, moon, and rising, what was going on in your life back in 1977, starting at the end of August through to mid-April of 1978. If you're old enough to remember the time of that, I mean, I was like 15 years old, but that is the last time you've had Mars spend this much time in the sixth house of health, work, pets, rentals, tenancies, and karmic debt. Like the paying off of the karmic debt. We have the debt of the karma of our lives in the eighth, we paid off in the sixth, we get the rewards in the 11th. So I was but a mere 15 years old, and I'm trying to remember, what I was doing in that window of time. It may have been health related. I went through a big intensity around a health issue that I had imagined I had. I was a hypochondriac. There's that. But whatever. We're back again. And so we have this Mars transit, as I said, September 4th to April 18th, minus a dip into Leo. The Leo dip into your seventh house of long-term committed love, business partners, audience, clients, and marketplace will be November the 4th to January the 6th. So basically November and December, you got a Leo story going on. Mars and Leo separates things, so he'll be cutting away and ending or severing or distancing you from your audience, marketplace, or clients, or finding that the audience and marketplace clients are gnarly, troll-like, and fearsome. Or, you just may find that you need to have time apart, or will have a time apart in the time frame of November December from a significant long-term love partner, maybe through travel or maybe through endings. So endings can happen here too. Mars is also going to drag some energy back from the 7th house into the 6th house. Now, rental agreements and rental properties as a tenant or landlord are 6th house matters. So keep that in mind. You may be making some changes regarding those things anytime between September 4th and April the 18th. Pets, not to worry you, but September 4th to November 4th in particular, you may come into a period of time where you lose the pet, as Mars will square the nodes of fate, South Node in particular, and could indicate a pet passing during that window of time. Sorry, it happens. You know, life happens. It could just be that you might watch for that September 4th to November 4th. A pet passing could be a true story. Now, Mars is also in the place here where you can look at his square the nodes of fate, June of 1987, April of 2006 for comparison, where he squared the nodes here in this part of your chart. So there may be some changes in your life connected to travel opportunities, for travel to far off foreign shores and land, ending or quitting jobs connected to foreign travel, foreign lands, and foreign shores, and changes of neighborhood. And maybe some of those things were true back then. I think in 1987, June, was that when I traveled to, I traveled to Egypt and I traveled to Greece. So there was major travel connected to that time in my life. And that would indicate karmic travel. You've been there before. You feel, it feels familiar to you, something like that. I'm wondering also with Mars moving through your 6th house, if you don't want to make some major adjustments to your health protocols. Mars gets us physically active anywhere he goes. This is a water sign, Tai Chi, flowing martial arts, swimming, more fluid movement style. Yeah, because this could also help us eliminate dietary stuff as well. He's trining Saturn in the house of what we eat. So new dietary patterns for better health, new movement styles for better health, emerging September 4th to April the 18th is a narrative for us as Aquarian rising people, Sun and Moon secondarily. If you have a job, whether you're self-employed or you work for someone else, it doesn't matter. Mars is going to mean you're working really hard. He's in the house of his joy. You will put a lot of effort into work. You will work your ass off, particularly September 4th to the November 4th, and you may work your ass off January 6th to April 18th. Yet you may take a breather and not work so hard November 4th to January the 6th because of Mars getting out of the hard work house and into your 7th. I'm traveling to some warm beach somewhere and taking a break. So don't know about you, but I will endeavor to make the November 4th to January 6th timeframe open for relaxation, open for travel, open for getting out of the hard work cycle and decompressing just a bit. Mars is as well promising you a shift that I want you to remember that I'm going to tell you, Mars exalted your 12th house of foreign shores, foreign land, international revenue and commerce, and money that you make from international borderless income, and literally traveling to foreign lands and getting enlightened. Mars exalted that part of your chart when he rose in January of 2024 here in Capricorn, and he will finish that story by January of 26. So this is a time not seen since 77, 78, where Mars is exalting your 12th house of far off foreign shores and lands, travel, and international revenue. And that's a place of great success, but some of that may feel mitigated or weakened as Mars in his fall travels through the 6th house, and you'll wonder what the hell that was truly about. But it will be back by April 18th when Mars gets the heck out of that 6th house and the place of his fall. Mars is a ruler of Scorpio, and that's your 10th house of career, and he flows to your 10th house of career. And if your whole sign floating midheaven is in the 10th house especially, you succeed in your career. That is a guaranteed yes. Between September 4th and April 18th, the overarching vibe is succeeding in your career at new levels of success. If your midheaven is not there, look at any planets in your Scorpio 10th house that want to participate with Mars in your career success. I've got Neptune up there, more YouTube videos or more storytelling, more book writing, who knows. I'm going to draw a tarot card, but I also want to say that generally speaking, you know, Mars is also squaring in September and October. Mars is going to be squaring the North Node and could be driving you to work very hard at some kind of communicating, writing, selling, marketing projects or teaching projects. So the square is waning. I mean, he's moving away from the actual square. I mean, he's applying this way and he's moving away from the node. So, but you still might find yourself, looking over your shoulder going, I got to work really hard in my writing projects, marketing, selling, communicating, and teaching. And that could just simply make sense for me, right? September 4th to November 4th, I'll be teaching Sky Reader in the middle of that. So I'll be working really hard. I might feel like I'm overworking even. All right. I'm picking a card for us Aquariuses. Okay. Let's get a card going. And what is the message Mars has for the Aquariuses? And the four of Pentacles, working hard. Oh my God. It's, if you turn it upside down, it's Malkuth. It's like getting the material success from the guy that's holding the pentacles in the traditional rider weight deck. She calls this card, the creator of this deck, materialism. And there's a woman sitting on a bunch of coins. So often the four coins is how we want to be materially resourceful, to be the king of our pentacles. It can indicate sometimes a scarcity consciousness and need to clutch at our pentacles or clutch at our coins. So there's a lot of that energy that makes sense when Mars is working so damn hard and he's flowing to the Saturn in the earnings house and he's flowing to the Earth, the 10th house of career. It makes sense that we feel that way as Aquarians, that we may enter into a period of hard work, but also dietary change, which I think I failed to mention. I hope Saturn is like constricting or restraining our dietary food and ingestion of substances one way or the other, trying to curtail it, structure it. And Mars is cutting anything that's addictive. And this flow is really good for cleansing. I'm going to do a water fast, for example. I'm going to do a AIP protocol autoimmune diet for the month of September. So if you want to do that kind of cleansing, as an Aquarius, autoimmune protocol diets for me, you do you. This is an ideal transit, September and October, to really clean up your act, especially if you want to stop smoking or drinking and take a break from negative habits that impede better health. I'll be sharing my journey through that with you guys on YouTube because I need to cheer myself on, and having a support structure helps. Just letting you know what I'm up to and having you guys cheer me on, it could be useful. And what else is happening here? That's it. Just don't cling so much to those pentacles, let it go. You'll be fine. You'll be fine. The money will show up when you need it. That's all I'll say about that transit. And the 2-year story as well, 2 years, right? Mars is going through your 6th house and doesn't come back till August, September of 2026. So changes you make in your career success, earning structures, and changes you're going to make energetically connected to the career and money stories and dietary stories are going to be a 2-year story. They don't unwind fully until August and September of 2026. And and you could change a rental agreement as well, especially with Mars near the end of the Cancer transit. It could look like the end of October, early November, end of October and early November, or the first couple of weeks of April, some major changes, exciting, surprising to home and rental situations as well. Algol Uranus, expect the unexpected. And here we have never last and never least and always the best. Here we go. Let me just pause the recording for a minute. Have you hit the like button? Have you subscribed? Have you hit the notification bell? Are you in the live premiere? Thank you for being here. Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and do Pisces, but I just want to remind you that when you hit the like button, you share and you subscribe, it has an amazing impact on the algorithm, and it really does help me with this channel. So thank you for the time and attention to that matter. Okay, it's time for Pisces. Here we are. Pisces sun, moon, and rising sign. This is going to be an energy here where, with Mars spending such a very long time in the sign of Cancer, you do receive this well. It's a flow. It's called a trine relationship to your identity. So this is not the worst transit for you. However, this also is so rare that I'd like you to go back and remember what might have been occurring for you at the end of August 1977, if you're old enough, obviously, to April of 1978, because again, we're here. That is the house of romantic love. So I have a Pisces rising sister. She was born in 1960. Oh my God, my brain, 5, I think. Gosh, yeah. And that would mean for her, I'm just going back in my mind to think of 65, 1965, 75. She was 12 and 13. I doubt she had a romance. Okay. So if you can go back, it's romance, right? Fifth house is romantic, sexual love. Mars is sexual energy. So some of you might have been involved in a very interesting and very intense sexual, energetic, romantic love story if you're old enough to remember that time frame. Otherwise, Mars's long journey through here, September the 4th to April the 18th, minus a dip into your 6th house, we'll get to that, is a story about passion and ardor and intensity and romance. And if you're a single Pisces and you're looking for a romance, this could bring a romance to you. And because Mars is squaring the South Node Venus energy, it can indicate a karmic relationship. Deeply karmatic relationship could come to you as a result of this transit. So those single Pisces, this is interesting. However, Pisces, it's also potentially going to cause conflict with a child and difficulty. If you have children, young or old, any age, your children and you may be in a state of conflict or disagreement over something, or a child is leaving or separating from your life, maybe moving out of your home. But there is child stories, children's stories, really at the top of mind for those of you who are parents. With Mars's long transit through here, you may be passionately engaged in creative, artistic, and entrepreneurial projects, and you may be putting a lot of passion, drive, and willpower into them. Mars was last here, if you want to compare notes in a shorter version, March 28th of last year to May 21st of last year. How did it go with your children? How did it go with creative projects? How did it go with romantic and sexual energies? What were you doing here at that time? It's not a good time to gamble. Mars rules competition. He's in his fall. Gambling is a competitive endeavor. You're competing against other gamblers. Mars is in his fall. Stay clear of gambling and risky gambling situations, please. During September 4th to November 4th, or January 6th to April 18th, when he's in Cancer. He slides into your 6th house on November the 4th and will not leave until come back to Cancer until January 6th. November 4th to January 6th, Mars has you working hard, temporarily working hard. You might be really grinding nose to the grindstone, really going for it in some area of work, or really working on eliminating dietary and food style matters, because he'll be in a flow to the North Node in your 2nd house and trining that energy of Chiron. And you may, in that shorter window of time, November the 4th to December 6th, change your food style, change your food habits, cut away addictions, or be working really hard and producing a lot of income. You'll be in an income generating hard work window of time with Mars in the house of his joy, working his ass off November 4th to January the 6th. Good time for producing wealth through work, basically. Now, with Mars in the 5th house, there is a possibility of difficulties with pregnancy. And if you are someone trying to get pregnant, I would almost say, unless you're looking for an invasive procedure, like in vitro fertilization, for example, then yes, absolutely go for it between September 4th and November 4th and January 6th and April 18th. That could be, he's trying to help you conceive through, that kind of procedure. Otherwise, it will often look like difficulties with conception, or unfortunately, pregnancies that don't hold. So if you are choosing to look at a pregnancy window, a conception window, unless it's an IVF, medical penetrating procedure, then do not engage in chosen fertility time if you can avoid it. September 4th to November 4th, February 20th, January 6th to April 18th. Mars is connected to an exaltation. I think I forgot that for us Aquarians. I apologize. Oh, I did. Mars exalted you here in January of 24 through to January 26. This is saying you're going to be super successful in your social media, your groups of belonging, long-range plans and goals, and money you make from your career, particularly 10th house matters. Reaping and harvesting a great deal of financial success for some of you Pisces is going to up-level your financial wellness from your career path in the next couple of years. But you may feel that's not true between September the 4th and April the 18th as complications occur, as Mars is in the 5th house in his fall, or even here in aversion. So don't look for obvious evidence of career gain success as the way you think it could come to you, because it may be delayed here. Mars is squaring the nodes of fate in the middle of September around the 16th, and he also squared the nodes of fate the same way in June of 1987 and April of 2006. If you can remember your life back then, similar stories may emerge where you are going through some difficulty with your finances. This is North Node, South Node energy and earnings and inheritance money. Bank loans, mortgages, money from shared with a spouse, South Node, Venus, loss. Be careful in the stock markets and do not gamble and do not speculate. Your risk taking will not pay off in this time frame, especially September, October, and into January, because energetically Mars is in an energetic square. Well, let's say this, September 4th to November 4th in particular, be really careful around stock market investments, long range money stories to do with don't take risks. Do not gamble here. You're going to come into a feeling of some loss. You're going to have a feeling of loss anyway. Maybe money needed for a kid is dragging down your long-range savings and long-range money stories. Maybe a kid is demanding or needing financial support from you. For example, even an adult child, September 4th to November 4th, it's a difficult window of time. Or a romantic lover is dragging you down for money stories as well. Mars is the ruler of Scorpio, and that's your ninth house. And that's a good story for you in the sense that Mars is flowing to that ninth house. And this is a very nice time, we'll say September 4th to November 4th, or January 6th to April 18th for applying to university, studying, traveling. Travel study is good for you during this window of time. You might want to go off on a foreign shore trip. You might want to enroll in an educational course. So that's the good news. But there's a lot of difficulty on the nodes of fate. September 16th, be careful also for fractures in long-range monies, shared resources with another person, especially your marriage partner, where there's going to be conflict around money and children, savings and earnings energetically, potentially in that window of time. September 4th to November the 4th. Ultimately, it's a 2-year story. Mars's journey through your fifth house reoccurs in August, September of 2026. So you're making changes now that will not reset, like a reset button, will not reset in the Cancer part of your sky until August and September of 2026. So what you do now impacts you for the next couple of years energetically. Keep that in mind. And because we have a square to the nodes of fate, like we did in June of 1987 and April of 2006, the changes you're making here are profoundly karmic. And a lot of it has to do with your money. A lot of it has to do with the way you make and save and earn money. It's not too bad if you want to be an entrepreneur. Mars is in the house of entrepreneurship. But for everybody else, again, who is this conflict, money, tension coming from? Romantic, sexual partner, one of your children, situations to do with inheritance and children, situations to do with shared monies with your romantic partner, your long-term life partner, and the kids and conflict here, right? Keep it in mind. If you're single, you don't have kids and all that, we'll just ignore that. I'm just saying, don't invest in the stock markets right now. Do not take risks in those kinds of markets. Do not take a highly leveraged loan from private investment money you're not going to be able to pay back. Just be careful. Good news, you have Jupiter bringing you fourth house luck, legacy wealth, inheritance money can happen here for you, especially between now and next June. In the short term, though, right now, there is some tension in the money access. So be cautious here for sure, especially with money you share with any other person that you don't have 100% dibs on, right? You buy a stock, you're a shareholder, right? You borrow money from the bank, you share the money with the bank. The mortgage is that shared money as well. Tension here arising in September and November with that kind of money. All right. Thank you for listening, everybody. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell for notification. This is a super long video. I get that. I think we're coming out with this video sometime. I'm recording on August the 29th for my Patreon community. They get early access ad-free. If you want this early access ad-free content and you don't want to pay for ads and you want to join me in more intimate community settings, come aboard my Patreon community for a mere $5. And there's different meetings by Zoom with me, etc. I will be soon offering in September remember a join button for my channel. I don't know what it's going to be because I can't replicate Patreon, but YouTube's trying to get me to do it. So I'll probably have a join button for some live broadcasts on YouTube for only for my members. And so if you want to talk to me in live context instead of replay context with the live chat, that's something I might be offering for you guys. So stay tuned for that. Thank you so much to my regulars. Of course, I always want to shout you out, but Ellie Taylor, Stephen the Jupiterian, good vibes because she's been so sweetly kind to me lately in the chat. And all of you, there's so many of you, you know, Discerning Light Herbal Empress, Serge LaBelle, One Wise Lady, One Rare Bird. All of you guys have been around for a long time. A lot of newbies in my crew. Thank you. Yes, I love getting to know you, but some of you have been with me for 4 years now, and I do appreciate that. Have a wonderful journey through Mars in Cancer. Bye, everyone.